Report on council actions. Mr. Haverfield is online.
Madam Chair, thank you for allowing me to share a few things from our March 7th council meeting. The first thing we received that I thought would be of interest to you is that this year, we're just extremely pleased with the work that the Spectra Productions have done out at the Idaho Center and at our Civic Center. 8 years ago, when I got on council, our general budget, it was about 1.7 million a year that we were giving to the Idaho Center to keep it afloat. We actually, for the first time in many years, we saw a profit of nearly $500,000 at the Idaho Center. That's in the black, 500,000.
Wow.
After 8 years ago being in the red, 1.7 million per year. And the Civic Center also exceeded projections. We're not quite in the black there, but they exceeded projections of loss by over 200,000. So they're moving in the right direction as well. So those were very good annual reports on those two facilities. Just jumping to the public hearings for the March 7th hearing, two of the major items that we reviewed were the development agreement modifications and conditional use requests by the Gardner Company for the Gateway Center. The council approved the development agreement modification to allow the multiple uses for manufacturing, compounding, processing, those things that would allow the old Macy's building to be used as far as for a new tenant that they have coming in there, which is a growth of a local industry, which is a very great thing that's happening there. Council, it was the conditional use permit to allow multiple family residential apartments was denied on a split vote. So I'm not sure at this point what will happen with that portion of the development. I know you as a Planning and Zoning Commission approved the concept as it's was presented. There's still some things to possibly be reconsidered, and possibly a reconsideration might come back before council for that. The other item was a major development, which is that planned unit development out off of Amity. Again, a split vote, but it was approved. The main thing I think that the council was, some of the council members were concerned about was the amount of the apartment dwellers in near proximity to the larger acreage lots that were being presented. But the mix of BC and IL along with the residential was well received. And again, it passed, but still with a split vote, but it did pass. So that will be moving forward. With that, I'll let you go. I know you have a long evening. If you're starting this early in the evening, that means you have things to talk about. But if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out to me, or you can present those to Matt. He can get them to me as well. But if you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and let you guys go on to bigger and better things.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too. Okay. Approval of the 2:15 minutes. Seems like forever ago.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Matt and seconded by Steve to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And Rodney, you would like to address us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to speak just briefly. One thing that Council Member Haverfield mentioned was the Gateway Business Center. They have requested a reconsideration. That just happened. That came in today, and so that will be going back to them for reconsideration, or at least for them to decide whether they will reconsider it. And then I just wanted to speak about Thursday's meeting. I know you've been notified about it. The City Council workshop that's coming up on Thursday at 7 o'clock. I spoke with the mayor today, and she said it's likely that she won't get to the planning and zoning related items until 7:30. The topics have changed. We talked about strategic planning. The topics have switched now. just barely happened. And the three items that we'll be discussing, and she really would like your input on it at the meeting, is industrial design review, whether we should go to industrial design review, have industrial projects go through that process. The zoning code for multifamily parking. We've had this discussion before back in late fall last year. You recommended 2.5. The council, we brought a proposal for 2.5. You recommended 2.2 parking spaces for multifamily units, and the council decided not to make that change and just kept it at 2. We have had some requests from a council member to relook at that and think about it again. So they're going to just generally talk about it. You may see that come before you again for your recommendation on to city council. And then the last one is just conclusions of law. You have your little sheet that's laminated that you use for making sure we're following the code. We're going to have a discussion about that with city council and get down to the process, make sure that the process is followed for the city council decisions that they make. So again, the mayor requested your presence at 7:30, and it'll be in this room. That's on Thursday morning. Any questions for me?
Be here at still 7, not 7:30.
You could be here at 7. There's a budget item regarding the horse park at 7 o'clock, and the mayor said that she anticipates that going at least a half an hour. So she said if you want to just show up at 7:30, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay, we have several business items. 5 to be exact. Okay, so the first one, Christy.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The first one is Locust Lane subdivision. It's the one and only final plat for this project. Staff finds that it is within the city limits, zoned RS 8.5. It does conform to the approved preliminary plat, and it does conform to the applicable zoning codes. This is your motion.
Madam Chair, I move to recommend to City Council the approval of the subdivision final plat approval for Locust Lane subdivision at 3999 East Locust Lane for Alec Igarola, representing Lance Thewison, Triple Crown Development LLC, with all conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Matt, seconded by Tom to approve the final plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That one's approved. Doug has number 2.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is Silver Star Final Plat number 5. This is within the city limits. It's within the RS 8.5 zone, and it does conform to the preliminary plat and the Nampa City Code. There is just a minor change to condition number 6. There was some language that was missing in the staff report. So this condition will be part of the consideration for approval, and here are the motions.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move that we recommend to City Council approval of the subdivision final plat approval for Silver Star subdivision number 5 at 0 Star Road in the RS 8.5 zoning district for Toll West Incorporated, with all conditions of approval as listed in the staff report, as well as the modified condition number 6.
Second.
All right, that's been moved by Matt, seconded by Drew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Action item number 3.
Okay, and this is Franklin Village number 1 subdivision, final plat. This also is within city limits. The plat covers the BC, RMH, and RS6 zone. The majority of the development will be in the RS6 zone with the roadway in the RMH and BC zones. It conforms to the preliminary plat upon review, and it conforms to the Nampa City Code. these are the motions.
We're on a roll.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to recommend to City Council the approval of the subdivision final plat approval for Franklin Village North, subdivision number 1 at 0 Cherry Lane Road in the BC RS6 and the RMH zoning districts for Franklin Village Development LLC, representing Don K. Brandt, with all conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned by Matt and seconded by Steve to approve the final plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 4, back to Christie.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This project is for Astaire subdivision number 1, and staff has reviewed it and found that it is within the city limits, zoned RS6. It conforms to the preliminary plat for the approved Astaire subdivision, and it conforms to the applicable subdivision and zoning standards for Nampa. These are your motions.
Not trying to break your rhythm or anything, but I move to recommend the City Council approval of subdivision final plat approval for Astaire subdivision number 1 in the RP zoning district located at 0 Midland Boulevard for Kent Brown, representing CIF Enterprises LLC, for all conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay, that one was moved by Steve, seconded by Matt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, final one.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This final plat is for Astaire subdivision number 2. Staff has reviewed it and finds that it is within the city limits, zoned RP. The layout conforms to the approved preliminary plat for the Astaire subdivision, and it conforms to the applicable subdivision and zoning standards for Nampa. And that is the wrong motion for this plat. You'll have to just look in your staff report.
Well, then I'll go for it, since it's the other one anyway.
There you go.
I move to recommend the City Council approval of subdivision final plat approval for Astaire subdivision number 2 in the RP zoning district located at 0 Midland Boulevard for Kent Brown, representing CIF Enterprises, and with all conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Steve, seconded by Drew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Should have talked slower.
Well, I got 2 minutes to explain everything. I know we got people coming in the door, so I'm gonna kind of tell you what. So we have 7 public hearings tonight, and the way this works is the applicant will come up and tell us what they want to do. We will hear from the staff as to if it meets the law and that kind of stuff. And then we will open public testimony to people to speak for, against, or undecided on the application. We'll go back and get information, follow-up questions with the applicant, and then we will close public hearing, and then we will vote and discuss. And when you are testifying for, against, or undecided, you will have 3 minutes to speak. So we'll kind of try and keep you on task, but if you agree with the person in front of you and you don't want to repeat everything they said, you can just say, hey, I agree with Bob who spoke before me, and you'll be on the record that way as well. And we got 1 minute before we can get started.
Oh, thank you. I missed that.
One we added one?
Okay, I have 6 o'clock on the dot. Public hearing number 1. Do we have an applicant here? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Blaine Womer, Womer Engineering. We are located at 4355 West Emerald Street in Boise, and I'll be introducing our project this evening. Reflections Edge subdivision is a proposed development of 97.8 acres into a total of 388 lots, 362 of which are buildable lots. The lots range in size from 4,000 square feet to over 13,000 square feet. The property has a comprehensive plan land use designation of residential mixed use. The current zoning of the property is RS4, RS6, RS7, RP, and BC, consistent with the residential mixed use designation. The residential uses are concentrated at the northwest of the intersection of Happy Valley Road and realigned Railroad Street, and the community business zone property is located southwest of the same intersection. The project proposes 14.5 acres of open space. This equates to 23.3% of the site, exceeding the minimum of 15% required open space. A large portion of the proposed open space includes the enhancement of approximately 11.5 acres of Indian Creek, creating an aesthetically pleasing corridor with inviting pedestrian access. The balance of the open space is distributed throughout the development in the form of landscaped lots, buffer strips, a tot lot, and access paseos to the Indian Creek pathway. The zoning for Reflections Edge subdivision discussed above was approved by this body on July 13th of last year, approved by the City Council on September 20th, and codified in a development agreement approved by the City Council on November 4th. The zoning boundary lines were defined by 10 lots of the Indian Creek Estates subdivision, the approval of which attract with the listed public meeting dates. During the above referenced hearing dates, we presented a concept plan of the ultimate layout of the subdivision. That concept plan was designed consistent with the zoning and showed 436 residential lots. The Reflections Edge subdivision is a refinement of that concept plan. Through the refinement, we reduced the buildable lot count to 362. That was a reduction in lot count of 18%. We also found that we needed to adjust the zoning boundaries that we had previously received approval on to conform to the plat as we did the refinement. We have reviewed the staff report and conditions of approval for both the zoning boundaries amendment and the preliminary plat with our client, and we concur with both. One thing I would like to say is we are aware of some letters the city's received with regard to traffic and the impact of traffic circulation due to this project. As a part of the project, back when we did the original zoning and concept plan, we had a traffic impact study prepared by Kittleson Associates, and they identified and analyzed the impact of the proposed development on the local circulation. The impacts were reviewed by the city engineer, and recommendations were made for conditions of approval that are associated with this development. Just a quick synopsis of those conditions of approval are roundabout improvements at the intersection of Amity and Happy Valley Road. Happy Valley Road widening. There will be 2 lanes, one north, one south, obviously, a continuous left turn lane and right turn lanes where required along the project frontage. Realignment of Railroad Street to intersect at a 90-degree angle with Happy Valley Road, approximately 500 feet north of the railroad. That'll create proper stacking and reduce the congestion in that area. And as a part of the project, there's a collector street that's proposed called Big Wood River Road. And it is a 2-lane, one in each direction, east-west, with a continuous left turn lane and bike lanes as well. So again, we would like to point out that when the TIS was prepared, it was prepared based on the 436 lot concept plan we had with the previous zoning request. Again, that's been reduced by 18%. However, the conditions of approval have not changed. We are still required to do everything we were required to do with the higher density. So with that, that's my introduction to the project. Christy will obviously give some detail as well, but I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
I do have a question for you. In your report, you had a neighborhood meeting on June 2nd of 2021, and there were 10 people in attendance, but you didn't say what the outcome. Did most people agree with your plans, or did not agree with them, or indifferent, or what was the?
No, they were in agreement. It was a good neighborhood meeting. There were some questions about traffic, and we kind of explained what the TIS was coming up with at that time as well. That was before we had conditions of approval.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll probably have questions after public testimony.
Sure, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Christie.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested from you this evening is a recommendation of approval of the preliminary plat for Reflections Edge and a recommendation of approval for the rezoning, or you may want to consider that to be the adjustment of the existing zoning boundaries in the RP, RS4, RS6, RS7, and BC zones, so that they will better align with the boundaries that are created with that preliminary plat. The history on this project, in January of 2003, it was annexed and zoned to BC. In September, oh, I have those backwards, sorry about that. In April of 2001, it was annexed, part of it was annexed and zoned to IH and prohibited a few types of industrial uses. In September 2002, it was annexed, a portion of it was annexed and zoned to IL, and it prohibited 12 types of industrial uses. In January of 2003, a portion of it was annexed and zoned to BC, which is commercial, that didn't prohibit any uses. They followed the 10.3.2 schedule. In September of 2021, as stated by the applicant, it was rezoned and the preliminary plat for Indian Creek Estates was approved. So that's what brings us to our residential zoning, as you can see here on the screen. The property is currently within the Nampa city limits and is zoned BC, RP, RS4, RS6, and RS7. To the north is currently Canyon County, but is going through the process of being annexed, was just approved last Monday as Chisholm Estates. So we're still working on that ordinance. To the south is Triple Crown Estate, which is inside the city limits. And then to the south of the BC corner at the south is Canyon County property. To the east and west is all Canyon County zoned property. The city sewer and water and pressurized irrigation systems have adequate capacity to serve this property, and the property will be required to construct utilities to and through at the time of development. He already covered the traffic impact study, but if you have any questions for us, Daniel can answer those for you. I've got them listed up here on the screen, and they're also in your staff report if you want to reference them. These are the applicable regulations when considering a rezone. These are the applicable regulations that were used in the review of this request for the specific zones and for the subdivision. So we did receive some comments from the public, from Lloyd Hill, Ron Martin, April Booz, Christy Hayes, Ron Kripe, and Tammy Sanchez, all regarding traffic and density concerns. We also received the standard comments from the building department. Code compliance has some comments about some debris and weeds that need to be removed. The Parks Department requests pathway easements and pathway construction. CenturyLink will need to review the construction drawings. Nampa Highway District does have required improvements along Happy Valley Road, which are already identified in the traffic impact study. Police and fire gave their standard comments, and the increase in population will require more services in those departments. The GIS division did provide a list of changes to street names that will be required, and the engineering division gave their standard list of comments. So this is a comparison here of the current zoning versus what's being proposed. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what's changing, and I hope you can see my cursor on the screen as I show you these things. RP is this blue kind of L-shaped area here. It will be changing from 3.58 acres to 4.31 acres. The RS4 zone here and down here will be expanded in both of those locations from 29.49 total acres to 57.72 acres. So it will encompass this and this down here. In the RS6 zone, which is currently here, and this frontage is going to change from 37.92 acres to 10.81 acres. So it will be decreased to this. RS7, which is shown here with this leg that comes down, will change from 11.7 acres to 13.10 acres. It's pretty much shaped the same. It's just kind of been dialed in to the shape of the plat. The BC zone, which is down here, is going to change from 2.09 acres to 4.57 acres, and it's down here in that corner. So it is in a residential mixed-use zone, so the zones that they've chosen are appropriate for the principles that have been outlined in the comprehensive plan. The plat is 97.8 acres. The total proposed lot count is 388. Open space is 25, which is 27%. Total building lots is 362, and then one commercial lot at this time. It does meet the density, lot size, lot width, and lot depth requirements in all the zones. The landscape plans have been reviewed and approved by the city forester. There are 14.45 acres of open space, which is 23.3%. It includes open space gathering areas, pathways, and playground areas. In relation to the schools, Columbia High School is 2,000 feet away. East Valley Middle School is a half a mile away, and Park Ridge Elementary is 1.5 miles away. So this is the fiscal impact study that we kind of try to run generically with market value estimates. According to however large the homes ultimately end up being and then what their market value might be, the applicant estimates that the values may fall within the range of $400,000 to $500,000. With that, it does prove to be a positive for the city. So should the commission choose to approve these requests, staff recommends approval with the conditions as listed in the staff report. And these are your potential motions. These are all together. If you'd like me to separate them out, I have those as well. Do you have any questions?
Christie, I have a couple of questions for you, please.
Okay.
First, I appreciate you changing what I was going to mention because you did it, but in the application, or in the staff report, the original concept mentions lot sizes for RS7, 25 common lots and so forth. And then the report that you did, it mentions acres. But it was hard to compare the acres to the lot sizes, but then you verbally gave us acres to acres. And I appreciate that. Unfortunately, it was hard to visualize what you were saying on the map. If we could get them apples to apples, orange to oranges in their staff report, you know, it's just like you gave it verbally, if you'd given it to a staff report, it would have been a lot easier to comprehend the acres, whether they were gaining or losing acreage. So I would appreciate that. And also, it mentions 26.04 acres of right-of-way in the original concept, but not in the second revised. I assume that's probably still the same, though?
Yeah, I don't believe that the streets within the subdivision changed.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Also, in the handouts on page 248, I don't know how to address it to you guys. Maybe that's it up there in the upper right-hand side. I can't see what that says, that open space, not something? Not a part. Not a part of?
Not a part.
Okay. What is there now? I mean, you've got 25 lots going in adjacent to it. What was there now? 1 home, 10 homes, or gas station, or what?
Are you talking about the piece up here on the north or this one down here on the south? Oh, the one in the middle.
Show me, where's the cursor? I don't even see it. Oh, yeah, that one right there, that one right there.
Okay. That is vacant at the
There's nothing
moment.
on there now.
There's nothing there right now.
Fine.
It's just not owned by this developer.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to have 25 homes against 1 home or something like that. And then also, I can't figure out, because the printing is so small, if these, what's these bushes and shrubs? Let's see what page I have that on. I guess any one of the pages, you have 2 different renditions of what these things are. There's 2 to each lot, 1 in the front, 1 in the back. But is it a tree up front and a shrub in the back, or is it one type of tree in the front and different kind of tree in the back?
So, Commissioner Kehoe, the way I am reading this,
There's a lot of them, so I think it's probably something good.
there are a lot of them, and you're right, it is small print. The ones in the backs of the lots, the kind of billowy looking ones, are maples.
So the trees, okay?
And the ones in the front are just a different kind of maple.
Okay,
So they're trees.
okay, so they're all trees. I think it's excellent. having the trees. In my subdivision, all the trees are out front, and everybody swelters in their backyard. So it's great to have a tree in the front yard and a tree in the backyard, in my opinion. So I really like that. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, any other questions for Christie?
I have a question for Daniel, if that's all right. I think for Daniel. So, on the traffic impact study, it sounds like it was done for the previous conception, right?
Correct.
Does the traffic impact study consider the impact of the railroad there?
Yes, it does, and that's part of the reason that the Railroad Street intersection was realigned and moved north to provide for that not being blocked when there is a rail crossing happening.
Traffic backs up a lot more than 500 feet there when there's.
Well, and that's, unfortunately with the rail crossings, they do cause problems. What we found there with the roundabout, and when we put the roundabout in there, it allows the intersection to clear much faster than a signal or the old four-way stop did.
The roundabout at
To
Greenhurst?
the south at Greenhurst, yes. And so when we say it took it into account, that's not to say there are no impacts from a rail crossing at any given point. But it does look at that and account for that, and we can't mitigate that fully without putting in an overpass there. And the cost of that is,
Millions.
yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, we're going to open public hearing. We're going to start with 4, the proposal. Ray Booz or Bose? Okay. So when you come up, give your name and address for the record and.
My name is Ray Booz. I live at 2017 South Secretariat, which is in the Triple Crown Estates, just on the other side of the tracks. And I'm not for this. I'm opposing it. I put the wrong thing down there. In fact, strongly oppose. Part of this has to do with the traffic. And as far as the mitigation on that, the 500 feet is not enough. Right now, there's a pinch point there that will be changed. And I'm told that that type of change will not happen until traffic demands it. So that, to me, says it's going to have to be built out, and there's more people coming onto it. As it is right now, the way the previous Chisholm development and this particular one, there will be 3 roads basically coming onto Happy Valley, which is posted 50 miles an hour right now. And if they can't widen the street or do something, they're either going to have to change the speed limit there, or you're going to have people exiting onto Happy Valley at 50 miles an hour. I can see just huge problems there. As it is right now, when there's a train and we have problems from people coming south of Greenhurst, there's development south of there, and everyone accesses Happy Valley going to the north. Once the train clears, then you've got all these people wanting to go north, and all of a sudden someone stops, whether it's going to be at the pinch point now or 500 feet, they're going to want to turn left. That stops traffic, and then someone's going to get hung up on the tracks, and that happens right now. Anyway, my real main thing is the density, 4,000 square foot lots, 261 of them in an area that's just not compatible with what's around there. Happy Valley, the development that I live in is from half acre on up, and I know it's 20-year-old development. It's just not compatible with that. And then you have also the pre-approved Chisholm is going to have 186 apartment plus townhomes. This is all kind of like right together. You're right next to the railroad tracks. You got 40 acres of industrial, and I just don't see how that's a good fit. If you come down Happy Valley, say from Stam, where you have most of the townhomes and that type of development, all the way south to the Amity roundabout, you don't have any kind of density like that. And here all of a sudden we have all of this. We got shut off on our irrigation early. You're going to have over 800 proposed units on this area. That's going to be a huge impact, I think, on water. They say you've got it, but we're in a drought situation already. It's the density and the traffic issues that I see are the big problems, and it's bringing to me inner city type of commotion and stresses into an area where it doesn't exist at all. It's nowhere around there. So to me, it's just not a compatible type of deal as proposed. I realize the need for affordable housing. Talk to a lot of neighbors. They've got 20-year-old kids living at home because they can't afford anything. And what I saw up there was a 1,200 square foot house at roughly 366. Can they afford that even? And that's the low end. And most of this is 500 to 600,000. That's still not what I can call affordable housing for young people starting up. It's just the wrong kind of development in the wrong place. And if they got to develop it, have maybe 10 to 12,000 square foot lots, not 4 and 6. So I guess it pretty much explains what I feel about it. And also looking down the road, I see going to the east of Happy Valley, when that gets developed, which it will at some point, I'm sure, a developer is going to look at that and say, hey, you made all this stuff over here, 4 and 6,000. I want the same over here. Have another, 500 to 800 homes on that side, and Happy Valley won't be Happy Valley anymore. So there's just no room for that. And have the inner city stuff, the density closer in other areas where it's more compatible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. So I got other people that have printed 4, so we're going to see if Don Newell, are you 4? I'm 4, I won't speak. Don't want to speak. Okay, you're on the record. And Matt Down? Okay. On the record. Okay, then we have people for against. Ryan Gravite.
Chairwoman, my name is Ryan Gravette. For the record, I have a residence at 1600 Secretariat in the Triple Crown subdivision, and I appreciate the comment about the tree in the backyard. I have a small orchard in our backyard, which kind of shows the juxtaposition between an acre lot and what is being requested in the zoning for what I will look out from my backyard into. I wanted to thank the commission here for the hard work that is done to balance the individual landowners' request to maximize the value of their property against the long-term vision of the city and what is best for all Nampa residents. I know that is a tough role that you guys play, and I appreciate the role that you do. I took a look and to try to see why there is a planning and zoning commission, and found on page 159 of your comprehensive plan, in bold print, compatibility means there is a visual relationship between the adjacent and nearby buildings, the skyline, and the immediate streetscape. Really, it's that vision of continuity of the city and the planning of the city that really drives the great work that you do. And I appreciate that role. For me, I think the density here is my biggest issue. When we're talking about a subdivision that will place 11 homes in the same area as one house that I currently own in my subdivision, it just feels like a large juxtaposition with so little space. And it seems like planning and zoning, in terms of that quote of the visual compatibility, just doesn't seem to make the eye test. And it's possible that I can look out over my backyard and see a high density like this and say that it does match, but I don't see any specific elements of this plan that actually make that compatible. Another concern of mine is the decrease in market value that is so closely adjacent to the neighborhood in which we live in. And it seems to me that the original plan prior to last year went through a variety of different changes, and I apologize that I wasn't able to make that meeting or the specific meeting for the neighborhood, as was mentioned for the neighborhood meeting. I have less concerns about the traffic impact. I know that you guys will do the good work to make sure that that occurs and that that flows as best it can, although egress onto Happy Valley does seem to be a concern of mine in terms of additional egresses of large population densities onto the main thoroughfare seems to slow down things. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time.
My sign says 30 seconds and it'll tell you time up, so I hope I didn't cut you off showing you the 30-second sign, so. Okay, now we have Brian Stockham, and you don't wish to speak, but you want to be on the record? Okay. And Frank Martin, same? Yes. Okay. And then Farron Swartz? Yes. Okay. And Sherry Swartz as well? Okay. Then Christina Forst? Yes. Okay. And Nancy Henry? Yes. Okay, you guys are on the record as against. Is there anybody else that's present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? Okay, that's, it was, hand? Come on up. We want to make sure everybody gets their chance.
Yes, my name's Raleigh Palmer. I live at 2027 South Secretariat Way in Nampa, in the Triple Crown Development. And I'd just like to go on record as being opposed to the current project as planned for all the conditions stated previously. And that's really all I have to say at this point.
Okay, you're on the record. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can we have Blaine come on up here and address some of this if we can?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the commission, Blaine Warmer again for the applicant. Yes, again, we're hearing the theme of traffic and density concerns, which are obviously related issues. And what I'd like to point out again is the reduction in density that we brought to this project. I think we have a much better subdivision now than we did when we had the concept plan before you. Again, we reduced it 18%. We went 74 lot reduction, actually. And there was a letter, too, that I read, a comment letter, where they talked about 11 dwelling units to the acre. And that's just an incorrect number. When you take the commercial out of our area and you do the math for 362 lots, our overall density on the project is 3.9 dwelling units to the acre. And even within the individual planning areas and zones, that's far below what would actually be allowed by the zone. And again, we did that because of the product that the builder's proposing to bring in and what we thought would be best for the community. The traffic goes along with that. Again, the traffic impact study did indicate that the 500 feet was a significant improvement to the stacking that would take place at the intersection of Happy Valley Road and Railroad Street. And the Big River, I think it's Big Wood River Road, I'm sorry, that is our proposed subdivision street, the collector that goes through the middle of our project, is going to take some of that traffic off anyway, because it's a street that doesn't exist today, and it will be an additional east-west corridor, which is helpful in the traffic mitigation situation. Again, I guess I would just summarize by saying we brought what we believe to be a very nice project to the area with densities that are far less than would have been allowed per the zone. We gave a lot of thought to this. The enhancement we're proposing for the Indian Creek and working with the Chisholm Estates subdivision, I think is going to create a beautiful corridor. It's going to look a lot better than things look out there right now. That's about it, unless you have any questions for me.
I do have a question. This kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, too, between what Christie said between acres and lots. So I have to use the old concept because the new concept is acres, and I can't change it to lots in my brain. This said you had 261 RS4 zoned, and, you know, if it's 10, 20 more or less, doesn't matter. The point is, what's the average value of a house in that size lot, 261 for RS4? That's what your biggest number was. What's an average lot or house value of that?
I'm the engineer on the project, so I know this is going to be a stretch for me, but
I'll take a stretch.
okay, I do believe that those were probably going to be in the 350, 375 range would be my guess. For the range I was told for the entire project.
All right. Wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I do. How many different housing types are going to be in the development? Would you, as far as like housing products? Well, is it multifamily? How many different types are there?
I believe we have a builder's representative that is on the Zoom meeting. Sabrina, are you there? Well, that fell flat.
He's probably there, but doesn't want to speak.
I think I'm going to need to defer to one of the other gentlemen to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, come to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record, please.
I'll be back up if
I think that what I'm getting at is the idea that the size of the lot is the only determining factor. It doesn't seem, because there are different types of housing people in certain, you know, you might have a senior community that might have smaller lots that are easily maintained where they wouldn't want, you know, a giant lot. And so I'm wondering, what was the design idea behind the project, and how, and is it meant to be mixed for a reason? What is your design idea behind it?
Hi, Don Newell, live at 1950 South Channel Way, Eagle. I represent Landmark Pacific Development, the developer. To your question, I think there's 4 different housing types. 5 if you count the live-work area, which is butting up to that, not a part that was brought up by Mr. Kehoe, which is that little infill piece. So 4 different housing products, perhaps 5 different.
Okay. Can you speak to the idea of why you wanted to mix those types? Why is it a good idea to have a mix of these dwelling types in a subdivision as opposed to just having big giant lots over everything?
Well, I think it hits different segments of the marketplace, and that's what the ultimate builder is looking for, to hit different price points and provide housing for different stratas of the housing market. And I believe it was submitted, some renderings of what the product might look like when we came in before.
Did they give any consideration or think about at all possibly along Railroad, maybe making those first set of homes on larger lots and then stepping down as you go back into the community? So the ones across the tracks that are on half to 1 acre lots?
I think there's a proposed berm along there for sound attenuation, so I think that'll help buffer that.
Any other questions?
I have one. About how much distance do you have between existing homes and where you would build, where you think a home would be on the lots that are adjacent to the railroad there? I'm coming up with like 550, 600 feet, something like that.
That's a Blaine question. I think it's quite a ways. Plus a berm being put there on the south side of the subdivision for that sound attenuation. But I don't know off time. It's probably several hundred feet, but I don't know the exact amount.
Right.
Perhaps Blaine could answer that.
Thank you.
I think Blaine's looking.
Blaine Warmer Engineering again. Yeah, I've actually never measured that, but I do, you're talking about between, as you cross
From the northern.
Railroad Street and the railroad right-of-way.
I think probably from the northern boundary of Triple Crown to the area where you're going to build, right? Is that what you were saying, Ron? Yeah.
Yes, that's, but when you take into account the sound attenuation berm that we have to build there, I think we probably have 400+ feet.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah. Somebody brought up that the railroad street was not going to be changed until traffic demanded it. Is that correct? or can you speak to
I'm
that?
glad you brought that up, Commissioner. No, these improvements have to take place as the development progresses. We can't get final plats, we can't get releases, we can't get C of Os until these improvements are constructed commensurate with the development.
And then, yeah, I was going to ask about the buffering, like, I guess along the railroad. Is there anything, is it just a berm? Is there to be landscaping along that berm? Or?
Landscaping, yes, it'll definitely be a nice landscape berm, sufficient in height to try to attenuate the railroad noise as much as physically possible with a berm.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I don't think so. Okay, thank you, Blaine.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for staff or Daniel or?
I hate to bring Daniel up here again.
What?
We were going to talk to you about that.
Want me to kick him for you?
Somebody brought up turning left onto Happy Valley. I imagine most of this traffic is going to be turning left onto Happy Valley. Is that a concern to you?
So in the traffic impact study, it talks about the turn lanes that are warranted. And so the new collector is required to add northbound left turn lanes and southbound right turn lane at that new collector roadway. And so that is what we would look at to mitigate the concern of someone coming up the road and needing to turn left when you're trying to clear the intersection of the traffic. It will have a left turn bay there to handle that.
I guess I was worried about Big Wood River turning left onto Happy Valley. Are they going to reduce the speed limit there, or what do you think?
So that is something that, so when we look at speed limits, we look at the actual data on the ground. As traffic increases there, it is likely that will drop down to a 45 or a 35 mile an hour road as the residential development happens along there. But I can't guarantee that because that really will be based on the data we see of the speeds, accident history, and all of that type of stuff is the things that go into looking at those speed limits. And that is a city function, not a development function. And so as we see development going in and see what the traffic is doing, that is something that we look at and is something that we can change relatively easily. It takes an action of the city council, but it's really, engineering doing the study, looking at what's appropriate, and then taking it to city council. I have yet to have city council not agree with the speed limit change that we're recommending.
Is the city gonna own all of Happy Valley or only the center, from the center line to the?
So currently, it is all within the highway district. There are some things happening with the highway district that may trigger the city to take this over sooner than later.
But otherwise, we'll have the half of it and.
We try not to, with the Nampa Highway District, we try not to own to the center of a road so that we're not having to.
You plow your side, and I'll plow our side.
Yeah, that gets difficult, and so yes, we either take the whole road or leave the whole road within the Nampa Highway District.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Any other questions for staff or motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing by Ron and Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Shell's, I don't hear her. Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Okay. you guys think?
How do we feel about the density?
I think it's a lot. But it has improved.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I personally think it's compatible. I mean, it's a good area for mixed-use development per our comp plan. It fits within what our comp plan allows, and it's a long enough distance away with a buffer from the railroad. I mean, the one concern is traffic, major concern, obviously, everywhere. But without development, we can't improve our traffic infrastructure, so I would tend to be in agreement with what the developer's presenting.
And some of you guys live out that way, and I live way in the west side. Can you see from this development across to the other development, across the railroad tracks, or is it too high?
You could see across it, but I mean, it's a long ways. And, you know, if this was buttoned right up next to it, property lines were right up next to each other, I would really have a hard time with
Yeah, that's what I'm
allowing
saying.
it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the engineer figures it's at least 400, I'm guessing it's at least all of that. And then you're gonna have the, you know, so you got the railroad tracks, then you got the berm, landscaping. You know, like I say, if it was buttoned right up against it, I would be adamantly opposed to putting that kind of smaller density, but I think we've got a long ways to go from there to this development, and I think it's.
That's what I was getting at too.
Yeah, it's a great mix of product I think they're bringing in there, and they're trying to do some live-work stuff, so you know, and it's busy over there. I drive up and down Happy Valley and Amity every day, about 2 or 3 times a day, so I know what the traffic's like. It's not gonna get any better anytime soon, so. And like Ron said, until we get the development to bring in the money, we can't improve the roads, so. But I think I think the whole project there between this one and the one to the north is gonna really make that look a lot better, and we're getting rid of the meatpacking plant, so I think that whole area is gonna look really nice here in a few years, so I'm for it. I think we're far enough away from Secretariat and that the size of lots is far enough apart that it's not gonna bother you guys.
And we're talking about impact fees later tonight.
Yeah.
I think my only concern is this chunk kind of in the southwest. I don't know if you call it a corner when it's a triangle shape, but kind of on that. There's that one chunk that's the really lower density, and then maybe bring up a map here, Christie.
Is that the BC part of it?
No, the other corner as you go up along Railroad there, kind of northwest of where her cursor is. Yeah, there's a couple blocks there, pretty small lots. I don't know if there's a way to rearrange this so the bigger lots are there and then it goes to the smaller lots, or those are the ones that are a little out of place to me. I'm really good with everything else. I like the commercial and the live work stuff, but I wonder if we flipped that, it would be more compatible. I don't know if you guys thoughts on that.
That's kind of what I was looking at is when I asked them if there was any thought of making them larger, but it, you know, again, if you go 400, 500 feet, that's a long ways away, and so it's not like you're putting them right up against each other. That's why I'm after thinking about it, I'm for it. So.
Do we have anything showing what that landscape buffer looks like, Christine? Or have we not designed that yet?
I can pull up the landscape plan, if you want to give me just a second.
Or am I the only one who cares about that?
It's in there.
It almost looks like it's far enough up there that it's not even gonna be adjacent to their development either.
Well, that part is the most, like the stuff that's east of that, stuff that's not a part is not really across from Triple Crown.
Yeah.
The stuff that's more on the west part is.
So This is the overall plan. I can go to separate sheets if you want me to.
If we can see it
This
here.
area right here is designated with a 10-foot berm with a stepped keystone wall and a 6-foot vinyl fence.
Oh, geez. They're not gonna see the sunrise until 11.
I was gonna say, that's more than most of them have.
Yeah.
so.
Was that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks,
Oh,
Kristen.
okay.
That's only my concern. Generally, I like the project.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Should, sounds like we're all pretty on the same page, so. I made like 4 earlier. So.
I know, your quota's in.
You're on a roll.
And I made 2, so.
Gosh, you guys. It's not a competition.
Okay, just to keep the meeting moving along, I'll move to recommend to City Council approval of the zoning map amendment to adjust the boundaries of existing zoning districts to RP, RS4, RS6, and BC, and preliminary plat for Reflections Edge subdivision, all located at 0 East Railroad, Forest Estates 81 LLC, with all the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, moved by Steve, seconded by Ron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's been going to city council now. All right, public hearing, item number 2. Now, if you guys don't agree with what we said, definitely go to the city council meeting. They will, okay.
10-foot berm and a 6-foot fence. My God, you won't even see them.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Do we have an applicant?
They're a long way. I wouldn't okay it if it.
No?
Oh, hi, Brett.
No applicant?
I would have been okay.
There they are.
Okay, come on. It's like nobody's coming.
Madam Chair, gentlemen, I'm William Juarez with EV Studios, representing Jim Cox and the parcel that's east of Madison. We are currently proposing a 4,800 square foot shop with 3 overhead doors, a small office, a restroom, utility room, and storage. Our reasoning for annexation was at the request of the city in order for us to tap into water and sewer for this project. Other than that, it's currently being used by JC Contractors, Inc., and right now this would propose a shelter for their workers to provide their services rather than out in the elements as they currently are. Available for any questions.
Okay, well, we'll hear from staff, and we'll see if we have any questions for you when we get done. All right, Doug.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Doug Critchfield. The proposal before you this evening is for annexation and zoning to light industrial of 2 parcels. The parcel to the west is owned by 16989 Madison LLC. It's being represented this evening by Steve Neighbors, and then Mr. Juarez is representing Jim Cox on the property to the east. The property to the west, Madison LLC property, per prior agreement with the city, is being annexed in to the city because of its adjacency. Do I go closer or further? It sounds like I'm going to make it ring if I go closer. So. Yeah. Okay, a little closer? All right. Okay, thank you. The jurisdictional status currently, obviously, it's in the county, and industrial in the comprehensive plan. The Canyon County exists to the north and to the east, and then south and west is also light industrial zoned within the Nampa city limits. There is agricultural and some large lot single-family residential and some industrial uses in the area. It is an area that's in transition to industrial. This is a view of the site from looking to the southwest of the Madison LLC property. There's a building existing on that property, and there have been some conditions placed on it by the building department that I'll review in just a moment. This is looking off of Madison Road to the east at the Cox property. Utilities are available along Madison for both properties. Access would be off of Madison for the Cox property and Madison and Cherry Lane for the Madison property. The regulations are for annexation are stated in your staff report, and also for zoning. These are the same regulations, conclusions of law that we have presented in previous projects. The applicable regulations for the light industrial district, they're attached in the staff report. There's a list of land uses that could be used, available on these sites, both permitted and conditional. And also the intent of the light industrial zone is to create and preserve and enhance areas containing a wide range of manufacturing and related establishments. In terms of the correspondence, to go back to the building department's comments, we received some correspondence indicating that in order to obtain a certificate of occupancy, these items listed here would have to be addressed. And the building department, the applicant started to build this building in the county and did not complete it. So the applicant is going to be working with our building department in the city in order to complete that building. The irrigation district would like a plan for this project once there's more detail available. The Nampa School District also encourages development of sidewalks. The fire department requires things, the building be brought up to fire code prior to occupancy. And the Nampa Engineering Division had several comments that are listed in your staff report. The staff analysis on this project is that it is flanked by industrial zone property. It's an appropriate land use setting. The utilities are available to the properties, and the applicant for the Madison 16989 Madison LLC is willing to work with the city of Nampa on the obtaining the proper building permits. So staff recommends approval on this project as a result. The conditions of approval were stated in your staff report. We've added the conditions that were given after the staff report was issued as condition number 7. And so you'll note that in the motion, instead of stating that the conditions imposed by the Nampa Building Department listed in the staff presentation rather than the staff report, so that it does cover those conditions. I'm sorry, I keep moving the mic back and forth here until we get a good range. So these are the motions before you, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Can you go back to the conditions? Sorry.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, we'll go to public.
I just have a quick question. I guess, Steve, if you want to come up. I was just going to ask why the two applications on one application and why aren't they split, all that stuff,
So a little bit of history. I'm a past general manager of NextEdge and the present general manager of 16989 Madison LLC. Beth, I can't remember her last name, Beth Innick was the Nampa economic developer, and she proactively reached out to NextEdge. So we bought the building. It had been sitting empty since 2009 with the intent to build it out in 2020. And with the pandemic, things just got shut down. We began, the understanding at the time is that we would finish the building under the Canyon County plans, the existing plans, and we'd finish that, and then once finished, we would agree to have it annexed into Nampa. We began the building is roughly, the structure is 100% complete. But the interior, a lot of the electrical was ripped out, some of the sheetrock got wet, the roof got damaged. So in August of last year, we ripped out a lot of the roof got damaged in a July 28th windstorm and completely ripped off the roof. So we began the process of finishing the building per my agreement with Nampa and Canyon County. So we've pulled the permit and have done the complete re-roof. We tore out a lot of the sheetrock that got damaged. We've done a lot of mold remediation. We have pulled the permits for the electrical, replacing a lot of the copper wire that had been stolen twice out of the building. The HVAC units were all taken off the top, and they didn't recover them. That's what created a lot of the mold issues. So in November, we ordered all the HVAC units, and they'll be staggered in here between April and June. I have a full set of contractors in there now, trade contractors. So I was a contractor for 30 years, and so as the general manager, I'm just finishing the trades, the interior. We think we'll be done. We thought we'd be done by now, but supply and workforce has been hard. So we think we'll be done and completed by June. We have the electrical almost complete. We have the fire system functional. We've had to redraw the fire plans. Those have all been done by Viking. We're in the process of painting the building now, so we've already cleaned it. My concern is to try to switch now from the county and all that I've been doing into the city. During construction, I'm concerned about 7A. I'm working with existing plans, and I'm updating everything for health and life safety. We're doing everything. We pulled out all the lighting. We pulled out 400 lights and replaced them with LED. We're bringing the fire safety all up to standards. We're putting in earthquake standards to it. So I'm doing everything to make it a top-notch building. But I don't want to try to go get an architect to go into that building and try to figure out a whole new set of plans. And I'm already, I think I'm 85% complete with everything I was going to do. And I'm just waiting on the steps. We didn't have a landscape plan, so we've already got the landscape plan being drawn up, and it'll meet City of Nampa codes. I've been talking to all the different departments in Canyon County, and I've been talking to some of the departments in the City of Nampa, because the intent is once completed, my agreement with City of Nampa is once completed, we would have it annexed into the city. We are presently on city water and city sewer. That was part of the economic plan that the City of Nampa did with RX Elite, who was the original owner of the building, who presently owns the building. NextEdge spun it off into 16989 Madison LLC. The CEO of NextEdge owns the building, and I'm his general manager. So I think having the Cox property, I'm agreeable to the Cox property being annexed, and I'm agreeable to our property being annexed whenever. I just don't want to go through having to get a whole new set of plans. And I've been building according to the existing plans with the Canyon County. So that's my concern. I'd like to delay our property till at least the end of June and then get annexed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Ronnie.
We have our building official online, and he's been in communication with the county and with the applicant, with the property owner, I should say. And I think he might be able to speak to these questions if you want to hear.
That'd be wonderful.
Madam Chair and P&Z Commission, I'm Patrick Sullivan. I'm the Director of Building Safety for the City of Nampa. And when we found out about this annexation of the old RX Elite building, we did reach out to the county first. And we actually asked them, could we do a memorandum of understanding where we could where the owner could complete the building in their jurisdiction, and then even after they had annexed in, because it didn't look like the building was going to be done. I talked to Steve Fultz, who is their economic development director, and or actually he's I think he's the development services director. And then also Dave Curl, the current building official. They indicated that the electrical and the plumbing permits that are currently being worked under may be pulled from the state because they don't inspect those two disciplines. They also indicated that there wasn't a current building permit open for this building, and that they would rather that the applicant work with the city of Nampa to get a C of O instead of going backwards with them. I've asked them to give me a set of as-built drawings, and the owner of the building could do the same thing. I think what we're worried about is there's been, we were probably on the 2003 building code, now we're on the 2018 building code and all the other mechanical, electrical, and plumbing codes. So there has been some changes to the scope of code. So instead of having an entire set of drawings, what we do need design professionals to just analyze the current set of drawings and figure out what items might need to be changed to meet the current codes that we're under right now. I think the biggest changes likely have been in electrical grounding and in the fire alarm and fire sprinklers. I don't believe there's been that many building code changes. So one way we could do this is just basically having third party or have the owner hire some design professionals, go through, do a quick analysis, code analysis for us, and then we would do a plan review on what their recommendations are. The other thing is the county did go out when we had discussed that we thought there was work going on out there, and when we were discussing whether or not they wanted to have it handled in the county or in the city. And when they sent an inspector out there to ask what was going on, they weren't allowed in the building. And so that's really where we stand. Once annexed, we do need a comfort level with some documentation to figure out what changes need to happen. We also need records of any third-party inspections that were performed during the original construction for the structure, because there was required third-party inspections for those. And we do need inspection records for any work that's currently going on with the State Division of Building Safety and any of the inspection records from the county. And we're requiring that the owner of the building put together that documentation, and we're happy to have a meeting with him to go over basically the finer points of that, so that he just has to get us exactly what we need and not more than what we need. So I think that's my synopsis of it at this point.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond. I mean, I'm just dumbfounded by what he just said. I've been to the Canyon County 4 times. I've been told I don't need to pull a master, by Canyon County, I was told I do not have to pull a master permit, because that's already been all done and already did. I need to pull all the trades, because what I'm doing is just finishing the interior trades. So I was told that by Canyon County. I'm not sure why Dave Curl is saying he doesn't know anything about it. We've never rejected and have been aggressive about getting inspections as we go along. I have licensed trade people that are doing work with inspections. They're not violating inspection standards. I don't know what's going on here. I'm dumbfounded. It was agreed with the city of Nampa and Canyon County, I could finish that building under the existing plans. I'm taking steps to, if there's anything that I think is a safety to health and life, I'm increasing that. And I don't mind city of Nampa inspectors and Canyon County coming in there, but I can't, I'm well on the way, almost done. I can't go back and redo some plans and have an architect draw it up. It's a violation of my agreement with the city of Nampa and Canyon County. We spent a lot of money buying that building based on a proactive economic development person from city of Nampa. And now all of a sudden I have, to me, it's almost incompetence that's going on between Canyon County and the city of Nampa. I mean, I'm just dumbfounded by what he said.
Do we have a copy of that agreement?
And I want one more thing. I would like, contact Beth. And I actually met with the Canyon County Commissioners. We have a commission meeting about it. I'd like to know who said we turned away an inspector. We've been begging for inspections out there. We've been held up by it. So there's not a single trade that has turned away an inspection. There was one time when the Nampa Water came out to set up a yoke, and they had a 1.5 inch line, and we have a 2 inch line. And so they had to leave. That's the only inspection that I know of that, and that was their own choice.
Rodney, how do you want us to proceed here? It sounds like there's a lot of stuff that needs to get settled before we can actually.
It is.
Can I ask a question? I mean, the issue on the table here is annexation and zoning, right? Yeah. So he's the path to the Cox property being annexed? Is that the issue?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I'm agreeable to that.
Right, but you've got to annex too, and if we annex you, you're connected to city sewer and water. And
I'm already connected. I've been connected since 2009.
I understand that, but I feel your pain. I mean, we've got Canyon County saying there's no active permit, or it's an expired permit. Patrick, I don't know if you can speak to that or not, but.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, when I talked to Steve Foltz, actually earlier this week and last week, I was told that there was not a current building permit at the city of, or not city, at Canyon County. All we really want is if anything has been inspected under the state inspectors on the work that's going on now, that's fine. If we can get those inspection reports so we can rely on them, we wouldn't need those changes. But I don't need a whole nother set of plans. What I need is I just need an architect, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer just to do a cursory review of the project, because the plans are way out of date for us to issue a certificate of occupancy under current codes, which are currently the 2018 codes. So I think this can be resolved, but I think that I talked to the applicant this week as well, and I said that I was going to check back with the county, and that's what I found out talking to the county. So it sounds like there is a disconnect, but I believe the disconnect is maybe this agreement was made several years ago with the intention that the project was going to be completed well in advance of annexation. So, but Canyon County isn't comfortable with that because enough time has gone on, enough code changes have gone on that they had concerns about finishing it after we've annexed the building. All we want is we just want a safe building, the same thing the owner wants, and we don't want to run him through a ringer either. And we're happy to work with them. We just need assurances by having inspection records. If all this stuff has been done and inspected, that's great. But in order to issue a certificate of occupancy in the city of Nampa, I need a city of Nampa building permit application that has the owner of record, a responsible design party, has a code analysis. You can submit the existing plans, and then all you would have to do is have a cover sheet or a short report just saying, here are the substantive changes in code since this project was designed. And like I said, most of those code changes are not going to be under the building code. They're likely going to be under the electrical code and the fire sprinkler code and the fire alarm code.
So if I could respond to that, I'd like to go out with,
Hold on just a minute, if you would, please. Rodney, go ahead.
Madam Chair, there are a lot of details here that I think need to be worked out outside of this public hearing.
Exactly.
However, I understand the conflict here is that Mr. Cox is trying to get annexed into the city. It still needs to go to city council, right? So we've still got probably a month and a half at least before we can get before the city council.
So you're recommending that we do our
If-
thing, approve it, and then let it go to them, and they will have the final say. If it's not finished by then, if these guys haven't come together and agreed upon something, then city council will adjust to it.
That's essentially correct. You need to find the conclusions of law to approve this. If you find those conclusions of law are accurate, you direct staff to work with the property owner and come to a solution to present to city council before they make their decision.
If we approve this, do we take out 7A? No. So that he doesn't have to come up with a full set of plans?
No,
or-
that's what they're gonna work out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it doesn't have to be removed.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Turner, I think with the conditions in place and you giving us direction to work with the property owner, I think the building official, I think he needs to sit down with the property owner and Canyon County all together and say, what can we do here? Because this is a challenge we've dealt with on this property for a long time, and the details are complex. This is not the appropriate time to work out all those details.
And Steve and Mr. Neighbors and Madison LLC were not the developers of the project. They weren't the original applicant. It was
Correct.
another developer and RX Elite that had a pipe dream and didn't work out, and they went bankrupt right before the financial crisis. So it would be good to get this property into use rather than just sitting there
Oh, that's what-
getting copper ripped out of it.
That's what the
And
director was saying, let's go ahead and proceed with this, and then let them work it out. When it gets to city council, if it's been worked out, they'll continue it. If not, they'll stop it.
Right, got it.
and if I may say, I'm agreeable for the city of Nampa to come look at anything and everything. I think I've actually stepped up and did a lot of good things for,
You're on the record, so
okay. So I'm agreeable to that. I would like them to go with me to the Canyon County and see that the overall structural permit wasn't required. It was just the trades because of the state of the building. So there's a real disconnect, and and to me, it's the
So do you want to move
confidence.
forward with this and then work out the differences afterwards?
Yes.
So, okay, so let's get that on, and
All right. I just don't want a bunch of conditions that somehow,
we don't want to have them either.
yes, okay.
That's why you're gonna sit down and work it out.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, so we need to open public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak for, against, or undecided? Okay. Motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. So,
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion. I'll move to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to IL at 0 and 16989 Madison Road for William Juarez representing Jim Cox and for Steve Neighbor representing 16989 Madison LLC with all conditions listed in the staff report and the additional conditions imposed by the building department listed in the presentation. I'm going to modify A to read that the current applicant on 16989 Madison LLC work with the Nampa building official and Canyon County to come up with a solution to their predicament regarding the building permit and certificate of occupancy in the process to get it done, so.
Second that.
I've,
Oh, sorry.
I don't know that we need to modify A, do we? I mean, if we're annexing this into the city, don't we want it to meet current codes?
Yeah, I think, what does they say?
But A, they want a full set of
Full set of
plans, but
drawings.
that's what's on the paperwork, it says full set of plans, but he was just saying they don't need a full set of plans.
Right, Patrick
That was
said,
my question.
Patrick said he needed
No,
inspection
it says a
records.
full set of drawings with any revisions to meet currently adopted codes. So it's just a set of documents that says this is what you need to meet current code. That's the way I read that.
Madam Chair and committee, if I could clarify that. If we are able to get the original set of documents that the city, that the building was built to, and then again have just a consolidation document from a licensed architect and licensed engineer that basically give us the data we need to ensure that whatever they add on to those drawings will then meet the current codes, then that would be acceptable. It's not, he doesn't have to redraw everything. We just need a baseline on what are we going to issue a C of O on.
I'll modify my motion to include everything that Patrick just said.
You can still second it?
Yeah, I might be in legal trouble, but yeah.
Okay, it's been moved by,
Claire's down there typing.
Karen was typing all of it, I saw.
she's got it on recording. So, motion by Ron, seconded by Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess we lost Michelle, so, okay, that will go on to city council, and in the meantime, you guys can hash out all your stuff.
Be civil with each other, please.
And we're gonna take like a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be right back. Okay, conditional use permit for a home occupation daycare. Do we have the applicant here?
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, online, awesome. Okay, give us your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. My name is Stanislav Kravchuk. Our address is 6290 East Lamp High Court, Nampa, Idaho 83687. And I'm here with my wife, Yevgenia Kravchuk, who I will be presenting.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I've introduced already myself and my wife, and we would like to open a home family daycare that can support up to 12 kids. Reason being, we're opening a daycare at home is of two reasons. One, my wife's father is disabled and is in need of daily supervision. Second, my wife is in need of a job where she can be close to home so she can take care of her father. My wife's mom has daycare experience as being a cook and a daycare provider, and we would like her to stay also in the future home and help with the family instead of working outside of home, as she doesn't know how to drive and does not have a driver license. So by having home daycare, it would greatly help to make our life manageable. We plan to open the daycare from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we plan to charge competitively in our region. And if there's any questions, let's see here. We noticed there was one question regarding, actually two questions from somebody in our subdivision asking how many employees will Little Me with Daycare employ for children from 7 to 12, or from employee. Basically, there will be only my wife because she's going to be working from home as she needs to care for her father. So we're not looking for many. And how many more cars will be parked on Lamp High Court? I don't think any more will be added. There's a question in that regard. And yeah, if there's any questions for me, please let me know, or any questions for us.
I have a question for you, sir. We have correspondence from somebody saying that they live behind you and that they sleep during the day. How would you address them not being able to get to sleep because your kids are making too much noise?
That's a good question. So our kids at our family daycare, they come out after 10 or 11 a.m. and usually after 4 p.m. and mostly it's for 15 to 20 minutes. So they're not most of their time that they're at the daycare, family daycare, home daycare. They are mostly inside. So I don't think you will exceed noise level of 75 decibels or how much there's a concern for. I think the construction zones that are happening all around our place make more noise.
Kids can be noisy.
And we will. So usually I think
Thank you.
there's a more concern. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll hear from staff, and then we might have some questions for you after we hear their presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a CUP for home occupation daycare for 7 to 12 kids. The lot size is 0.2 acres. It's surrounded by single-family homes in Lionsdale Park subdivision. Regarding home occupations, there's a number of performance regulations that it has to adhere by regarding signs, the home occupation area. The one thing to note is that no employees, which the applicant noted isn't the case. It can't create traffic beyond what is normal for a residential area. the noise, vibration, what have you, can't create a nuisance above the normal senses of the lot. And then the complaint procedure would be that on receipt of 2 written complaints from 2 separate households within 300 feet, the CUP may be revoked, or it would have to go through the public hearing process again. I think we're all familiar with the conclusions of law for a conditional use permit. Needs to be compatible with, not adversely affect the surrounding area. Correspondence Title IV for building department. One thing that we're requiring now is that they need to get a, with the certificate of occupancy, they need to get an electrical inspection for tamper-proof receptacles, and that'll be a condition of approval of this. The Nampa Engineering Division commented with the traffic generation report that the average weekday vehicle trips is 54. And it represents a 5 to 10 ton increase for single family residents. As was noted, a letter was received by the neighbor who's a day sleeper who has concerns about the noise and the parking on the street. A letter was submitted also in regards to the CCNRs stating that the HOA doesn't allow home occupations. The city would not get involved in that. It would be an issue between the property owner and the HOA to resolve that concern. The proposed use would bring a service to the area that may be in the interest of the public. Although it may be a needed service, it could be at the cost of the surrounding property owners, and would increase have an increase of some traffic in the subdivision. The conditions of approval are in the staff report, and there's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Walker, I have a question for you, please.
Yes.
Under the home occupancy standards, number 5 says it can't have any employees. If you have 12 children to watch out and you can't have any employees, isn't that a disaster waiting to happen?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, we allow 1 assistant for daycares.
Okay, so they don't call them an employee, but they call it an assistant.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds better. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. I think I just had the public hearing thing. There's nobody on my sign-up sheet to speak for, against, or undecided. Is there anybody here that would like to testify?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Moved and seconded by Matt and Drew to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed to closing public hearing?
Oh, public hearing, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
You want to talk some
I
more?
agree, let's close the public hearing.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Okay. What do you guys want to do? I think it. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
You know, I know we don't get involved in homeowners association bylaws and covenants and all that stuff, but I guess I should have asked the applicant before we closed the public hearing, so. It just seems contradictory to their neighborhood, which would change the.
Do you know how many of these we approve
I
against
know.
HOAs?
I know.
I mean, it's basically saying we're okay with it if the HOA is okay with it, right?
But I still feel for the lady who's trying to get some sleep. I understand that. I worked at night myself, so that's my only opposition, is just because of her.
But anybody could have 5 kids or whatever, and they're going to run
If you live
around.
behind
and-
us, our kids would drive you nuts.
Yeah.
And I mean, childcare is necessary.
Desperately needed.
and
Yep, that's
Really needed.
right.
I'm kind of torn.
Only
but-
one opposed, it'll still fly through, guys.
Madam Chair, I move to approve of the conditional use permit for home occupation daycare, Little Me with Daycare in an RS6 zoning district at 6290 East Lemhi Court for Stanislav Kravchuk, representing Eugenia Kravchuk, with all conditions of staff and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay, moved by Drew, seconded by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think I will.
Okay. All right, it's gonna be carried. Okay, I have to read this to you so that you know when your conditional use permit is valid. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. So just check in 15 days with Planning and Zoning, and they'll let you know everything's good or if there's a problem.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you, good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Okay, action item number 4. Do we have the applicant here?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Kevin Amar. My address is 1580 West Cayuse Creek Drive in Meridian, Idaho. I'm here tonight representing Town Creek Apartments. Town Creek is a 100-unit. We actually put in the report that it was 102 units, and that's an error. It's 100 units. We can't count. It's a 100-unit apartment complex combined with about 8,000 square feet of commercial along the main level of the road along, it is Idaho Center Boulevard. It changes all the time, so I have to keep up with that road name sometimes. This is at the corner of essentially Idaho Center and Cherry Lane Road. We are consisting of 5 separate buildings. They are all 3-story buildings. There is a pool as part of this development. There is recreation area. There'll be a gym and part of that commercial building will also be a gym that will be used by the residents. There's a dog park, clubhouse, common area. What we're finding in these multifamily developments that we do, we also build single-family homes. This is a project that is multifamily, but what we find exclusively in whether it's single-family or multifamily, people are looking for a place to live. It used to be that multifamily homes or apartment complexes were a stepping stone for another house. And in some cases, that is true. What we're finding now more and more is people are more interested in activity and less interested in maintaining yards. And so our development of these complexes has changed over the years to include more amenities, to include the things that people want to enjoy and live, but still be able to leave on the weekends or in the evenings and go ride the Greenbelt or go, play in the park or whatever the case may be. And so we have included in this project, along with many of our other projects, those amenities that people are looking for. And that is the recreation area. They may not have a backyard, but we try to provide a large enough recreation area that they can still be out and sit by the pool with their neighbors or sit in the gazebo or sit by we build little fire pits in them so people can go. If you've ever been to the village, people are constantly gathered around that fire pit and talking. The same thing happens at these, and it's really a recreation area that people can get down and know their neighbors and enjoy the evening. We also have in corner of the project, is this a pointer also?
Yeah, but it doesn't show up on the screen.
Okay, well, on the right side at the end of the little triangle is a dog park that is an off-leash dog park that's specific that people can go and use their pets or let their pets roam in the area without being disruptive to the neighbors. Speaking of neighbors, this is a comprehensive future land use map that is for a mixed use, community mixed use in the GB2 zone. We have, I think our next slide will show us this, maybe. To our immediate north is College of Western Idaho property. To our immediate south is a multifamily project called Laguna Hills. And we really don't have an east, although to the east is also College of Western Idaho. And then to the west is a future commercial. Currently, it's a nursery. And so we don't have any other immediate neighbors adjacent to this property. We held a neighborhood meeting. We did not have any neighbors show up. I don't believe we have anyone here tonight to speak in favor or opposed to the project. This is an enclave piece of parcel, so the city of Nampa already surrounds the entire property. Services are already there to the property. There is one thing that we will be working with the city for. The city has already acquired the property for a roundabout at this location. We will, and it's part of the staff conditions, work with them to make sure our entrances are put in at the same time so we don't have to tear up the road again. It can be done at one time during construction, and we'll coordinate with city staff and engineering to make sure that happens. I'm sure we're all aware, the next slide shows some of the employment in the area. This is an ideal spot for this property, or for this type of product. We built another project just to the southwest of this called The Summit. It is 102 units. That property has been full since day one. We don't even have that many move-outs at this point. People they live there and they're happy with it, and there's a high demand, as you know, for housing. We have to find a way to create more housing, and we hope to do that in Nampa. This is a good location for it, as we also have all the shopping, recreation. You can go to college, you can work, all of that can happen here. These are some examples of the project itself. You can see the dog park and gazebo, the pool. There is you can see that area along Idaho Center Boulevard that's got a pretty wide green buffer area. It is currently that wide, but that's also set back for the future right-of-way. But we did make sure that the buildings are set back in such a fashion that we will meet all the setback requirements and landscape buffer requirements for in the future when that road and that roundabout is completed. We have some examples of the buildings themselves. This building on the left that you see is the one along Idaho Center Boulevard, so the lower level is more for a commercial type office use. There's some interior photos. Again, we appreciate working with staff. We had a good working relationship with them, and we ask for your approval this evening, and I'll stand for any questions.
You have, up there it says you have 100 dwelling units in 5 buildings. Is each building basically the same,
Close. So,
other than the one with the clubhouse?
yeah, so that building, the entire main floor, part of it will be the clubhouse, and then the rest will be office. So the 2 stories above will be kind of that live-work concept. And then the other 4 buildings, there's one 12-unit building along with 3 24-unit buildings. These are a mixture of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm driving at, is the mix of units.
Yeah, so we built, I mentioned the Summit before, that had 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units. We needed 3 bedroom units. So-
First?
I'm sorry?
Which type unit goes first? When do you get rid of first?
1 bedroom units.
1 bedrooms? Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested is annexation and zoning to GB2 and a conditional use permit for multifamily up to 3 stories. The applicant went over the surrounding area. There's a few different multifamily projects around the Lost River, and then Laguna Farms are the closest there. The city services are all available, and they have a capacity to serve this property. The regulations for annexation are in the staff report. In regards to zoning, it needs to be compatible with the immediately adjoining areas and needs to be in harmony with the comprehensive plan. In In regards to the conditional use permit, I covered this with the last public hearing. It needs to be compatible with and not adversely affect the livability of the surrounding area. In regards to GB2 zoning, multifamily dwelling up to 3 stories is permitted with a conditional use permit. The GB2 district allows for a mixing of development types, but is further intended to allow medium to high density residential projects within a mixed use neighborhood. The site plan we've gone over. In regards to correspondence, the typical Title IV from Building Department, Valley View School District. So there are concerns about capacity at Birch Elementary and Ridgeview High School. These schools are currently over building capacity with the current enrollment due to high enrollment district-wide. Valley View School District does not allow open enrollment for students residing outside of district boundaries. The engineering division submitted their comments. A traffic impact study is required it does not meet the threshold, so it's not required. And then frontage improvements, they're working with the applicant on the roundabout and the frontage for this property. The parcel is currently enclaved, surrounded by a variety of uses. As I stated before, Lost River Townhomes is down the street. Laguna Farms is adjacent. The community mixed use does allow for this type of zoning. The proposed density here is 16.56. It's in the public interest to provide a variety of housing types as stated in the comprehensive plan. The conditional use permit for the multifamily dwellings, there's 5 buildings, 3 stories tall on each, totaling 102 units. The open space, the development proposes multi-space, multi-use green space, 9,900 square feet, dog park, which is 5,000 square feet, and then the pool is 3,200 square feet. If you take out the easements and the right-of-way, that's about 8% of the total lot acreage. Parking will be calculated according to code, which is 2 spaces per dwelling unit plus ADA spaces. The commercial portion would depend on the uses that go in those spaces, but it would depend, the developer would have to ensure that enough parking is available for those uses, and we'll determine that as those spaces are occupied as well. The development agreement could be added as a condition of approval should the commission desire to hold the developer to this proposed concept plan. The conditions of approval are in the staff report. One thing to note, there isn't a traffic impact study, but there is a turn lane analysis that will need to be submitted here. And any conditions that you would like to add as well. And there is a potential motion, and I will stand for any questions.
Walker, in our binder, in the staff report, you have the GBE district is designed to encourage the concentration of entertainment uses that complement the Ford Idaho Center. The GBE district is established to strengthen the role of the Ford Idaho Center as a regional entertainment district, emphasizing establishment, attracting a regional patronage. This doesn't do anything for that.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, this definition is from the GB, the Gateway Business chapter. The Gateway Business is broken down into GB1, GB2, and GBE. They each kind of serve different purposes. This is into the GB2, not in GBE, so it would.
I get it. Thank you. I'm fast.
Do we have a sign-up sheet, Daniel? Yes.
Here, I'll give her my glasses.
I need more coffee, I guess. Okay. Did anybody have any questions for Daniel? Okay, we're gonna open public hearing. The only people I have signed up is Kevin and Tanner. So kind of heard from you. Is there anybody else here that would like to testify for, against, or undecided?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ron and seconded by Drew to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right.
I think it's a great project. I live right down the street from this, and with the construction going there for the roundabout and what's going on in the area, it's gonna be a lot prettier than it is today. And good amenities, weird shaped property, so it's hard to lay out, and I think it's a good layout and plenty of parking, and it's gonna be a complex that will probably fill up very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit for CWI, so
Yeah.
I like seeing these kind of things together like that, even if it's not entertainment.
Okay, so we got
I
a
will,
couple motions we can do.
if there's any other discussion, I'll go ahead and make the motion. All right, I'll make the motion to recommend approval of annexation and zoning to GB2 zoning district and the conditional use permit for the dwelling multiple family up to 3 stories for Town Creek Apartments at 0-16940-169-16896 Idaho Center Boulevard for Rama Group, DBA Biltmore, representing Gerald T. Coleman and Stephen D. Shaw, with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Ron and seconded by Steve to approve the annexation, zoning, and CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I gotta read my little CUP thing again. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna get that memorized one of these days.
No.
Yep, I'm getting there. Okay, public hearing, item number 5. Do we have an applicant here?
Mark Butler, 1675 East Bishop Way, Eagle, Idaho. Madam Chairman, members of the commission, I'm representing John Esposito, who's the holder of this property. It's 1.7 acres. It is adjacent to the Greenbrier Estates subdivision. Mr. Esposito was the developer for Greenbrier Estates. He had acquired this property back in 2005. Had been approved about 15 years ago to do 5 residential lots and RV storage on the property. It's a little bit of history. And through some economic issues and so forth, he lost the property to the bank. The bank used it and rented it for Greenbrier for RVs for a while. There's anywhere from 6 to 10 RVs there. Then John purchased the property back about 4 years ago, and I recognize a couple of the P&Z members that were here back 4 years ago. About 4 years ago, John came before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had several issues with it, recommended denial. In the meantime, I took over, I listened to your concerns, I made changes, went to the city council. City council looked at it, and the staff report's missing a little bit of information. It says city council denied it. They did not. They remanded it back to P&Z. I came back to P&Z with the changes. You guys recommended approval. It went to city council. Just before we went to city council, the neighbors sued Mr. Esposito. And if you can put something that's more zoomed in to the property, stating that Mr. Esposito did not have access rights through that little piece of land. It's called Lot 20 in Greenbrier Estates number 2. So the council then, through Mark Hilty, he was your attorney at the time, recommended that it be remanded back to council until the lawsuit was completed, because you guys don't like to get into civil matters, and that's good. So it's been a long process through the courts, 3 years. Mr. Esposito's attorney died about halfway into the project, so it had to be turned over. The court finally determined that Mr. Esposito has no access rights to the property. Subsequently, Mr. Esposito had his attorney on October 29th, or September 20th, 2021, write the neighbors a letter saying that, you know, if you'd like to buy the property, the RV park, that'd be great, trying to work something out, but he can't go on his property, so he has to stop renting. The only way he can get into his property is by helicopter, and I'm not sure if that's permitted. So he has no right to go on the property at all, no legal right to maintain anything. So he desperately started searching for another access. He actually worked with some city staff, going through some city land, and then he negotiated with these two property owners where those two houses are, adjacent to where you can see the slope comes down to the property, and was able to negotiate an easement right where that little cursor happens to be right now. What a coincidence. So that he can get access from his property in that location. I want to point out, to be clear with the Greenbrier folks, I'm sure some are here, that no access is being taken through Greenbrier. If you look at the plat that's being proposed, there's a common lot, which is the private street that goes all the way over to Greenbrier. And the reason why it's there is because the utilities are stubbed into that property from that location. And so utilities will run into there, but he knows he has no access to that property in Greenbrier, and the access being proposed is off the cul-de-sac. That brings up the neighborhood meeting. You asked what kind of concerns were brought up in the neighborhood meeting. I attended the neighborhood meeting. Some folks on the cul-de-sac were concerned. You know, they live on a cul-de-sac, expected it to be a dead-end street, and now Mr. Esposito is proposing to extend it to add 7 lots to it. That was one concern brought up by the neighbors there. The concerns that I heard from Greenbrier was mostly stuff to do with the lawsuit. So with regard to access from the cul-de-sac, your fire department allows up to 30 homes on a dead-end road. That's per the International Fire Code. After that, you have to have a secondary access. We'll have a total of 7 homes on this cul-de-sac. There's 4 existing. Mr. Esposito is proposing 7, so there'll be a total of 11. Vehicle trips per day on his 7 were going to be less than 50. This is a 55 and over park. He's still going to build it similar to what he did in Greenbrier, 55 and older, similar type homes, 1,600 to 2,200 square feet in size. So if you look at the trips per day that's generated by us, that's 50. 40 by the existing 4 homes. If you count 10 trips per day, that's less than 100 trips per day in the cul-de-sac. So the trips per day are very reasonable. They meet your fire department standards. It looks like your code doesn't really outline how many homes can be on a cul-de-sac, but I think some of your code refers to that wonderful Ada County Highway District. They allow up to 400 trips per day on a cul-de-sac, just to give you a perspective of a neighboring county. Again, I just want to clarify that the access is being proposed from the cul-de-sac, no access through Greenbrier. I want those folks to understand that. Lastly, I want to say that we're in full support of the staff report. All the conditions are well within reason, and we're fine with that. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Anybody have any questions at this point?
So Mark, no access, but like a dead-end road?
No, that's not going to be a road. The asphalt stops where it's shown to stop, and that will be an area for utilities to come through, and it'll be landscaped and made a landscape area. That's not a road. Gotcha. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll hear from staff, and we'll probably have some questions for you after public testimony. All right, Parker, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested is the recommendation of approval or denial for development agreement modification in the short plat. The property is in city limits, zoned RP. I think we're familiar with the surrounding area, Raintree to the west, Greenbrier to the east, county to the north. The city services are available and they have capacity. These services are stubbed to the property along the east boundary. I won't get too involved in the history as there's quite a bit here. It was originally annexed in 2005 and zoned RP with the development agreement for RV storage to be used only by the Greenbrier Estates residents. At one point, there was a conditional use permit for an Alzheimer facility, which was denied. And then the 2018 development agreement for 5 family homes that the applicant covered. There's a aerial view of the property. The applicable regulations, it's the RP zone was zoned that originally because this is intended to be a type of mixed-use development. It's not a regular zoning for a single-family subdivision, but it provides for a medium-density multifamily area and desirable mix of residential land uses. And this subdivision would fit within that RP zoning district. The density required, one thing to note, the maximum net density is 7.26 for single-family homes and a minimum of 4.84 per acre. Then the setbacks are 8 feet from the sides and 20 feet from the front, regular for single-family subdivisions. In regard to development agreements, the development agreement is basically a agreement between the developer and the city that will be developed in a certain way. The commission and the council are able to modify that after going through the hearing process. The correspondence we received, typical correspondence from building, forestry, the fire department, and from engineering. We received one late comment that wasn't included in the packet, saying that they were in favor and that the parcel should be able to access a public street. We also received one comment against that was included in your staff report. The development is wedged between 2 subdivisions. And the Greenbrier Estates is 55 plus, senior living development, and Raintree is not. This development would be 55 plus, senior community. The future land designation is low density, and the current zoning is RP, which doesn't necessarily fit, but there's no zoning change requested here, and not necessarily required. As stated before, it's in the public interest to provide single-family residential developments within the city, as stated in the comprehensive plan. In regards to density, which I mentioned earlier, the maximum would be 7.26 for this zoning for a single-family subdivision. This proposed subdivision has a net density of 7.45, which is just over, which does not meet that range. The one reason for that is the existing Idaho Power easement, which takes up a large portion of this site and has a good impact on that density calculation. So there's a large amount of open space, which we can't consider buildable for that reason. But substantially, it's compatible with the RS6 subdivisions and the neighboring subdivisions as well as far as density. A letter was submitted by the applicant requesting a waiver for those reasons. The existing development agreement is for RV storage for the residents of Greenbrier Estates. The development agreement would need to be modified to allow this development to occur. In regards to the short plat, the area is 1.35 acres, proposing 8 lots, 7 of which are buildable. The one on the right is the landscape plan. The checkered polka dot area is proposed to be turf, grass. The easement, you can see on this one here, is this whole area down here, which is a no-build zone along the east property boundary. And there's power lines that run over it. The plat is deemed to meet the minimum lot size. The short plats are exempt from lot averaging and lot compatibility. The lots meet the required lot width. There's no right-of-way being dedicated here. However, an access easement needs to be recorded prior to plat approval, as the project is not viable without that easement. Some revisions were requested for the landscape plan, and no open space is proposed here. We have a list of recommended conditions that are in the staff report. A lot of it has to do with the engineering comments and securing those easements for the access, and some of the other easement issues. The potential motion is here. We can't necessarily break them down because if you deny the development agreement, you would have to deny the short plat, so it would have to be made as one motion. And I will stand for any questions.
I'm not sure this is a viable question or not, but since there's already been so much legal back and forth over this property, is it going to be any more potential legal battles?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, as far as the city is concerned, we're not going to get involved in the legal matter. And it's kind of an issue that isn't really, doesn't really take much weight on this matter, I guess, because it has to do with the access, and this development doesn't have
People out here
access.
are probably going to say no, and they may say, well, we'll sue the city because you made a bad decision.
I'm not sure what the just bad decision would be.
Well, because we had built a cul-de-sac, and cul-de-sacs usually are dead ends, so to speak, and now here all of a sudden we're saying, well, not this one. This one's gonna have access to a subdivision. And here comes the boss.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kehoe, the cul-de-sac is a public right-of-way. And so the applicant has acquired or a legal easement to access his property to that cul-de-sac. And so if this project is approved, the residents would have no legal recourse to.
They would not have any.
No, if the litigation regarding the access was the access through into Greenbrier, which has private streets.
Those are private streets, not public.
Those are private streets within Greenbrier. The cul-de-sac in Rain Tree Meadows is a public street. And so I don't believe there would be any concern over legality of that access.
I want to get the city into a whole ball of wax.
No, I don't believe that would be a concern in that, for that specific issue.
Any other questions before we go to public hearing?
Nope, let's do it.
Okay, we're going to go to public hearing. I have, I think somebody online, Mark Butler. Oh, that's me. Oh. Okay. You're here. You're here and in favor. And then I think it's somebody Hill on. Okay. Well, then you have to come up and speak and give us your name and address for the records. Well, you got to get up to the microphone. We got to be able to put you on the record and have it recorded.
We don't expect you to know.
We'll
Don't
keep
worry
you in
about it.
line.
Well, thank you. My name's Michael Frederick Hill. I live at 406 West Fern Drive in Greenbrier Estates. I really don't have a fight in this, but I just wanted to ask, okay, this wants to go for you're putting in for a 55 and older. How does that get policed? That, yes, only 55 and older can live there?
I don't know, but we will ask and we'll let you know.
Because we have a rental that's in front of our Greenbrier Estates. And it went through, and the owner, the builder says there'll be 55 more for rentals. But I see lots and lots of people that are half my age. So that's why I was,
I don't know.
Question, we'll find out.
You look like you're 35, though.
well, thank you. You look 15.
Wait, I had to pick my feet up.
Yeah, that's all I really wanted to know,
Okay.
and thank you.
All right. Okay, the next people on my list are against. So a lot of you have said you don't want to speak, but I'll read your names, and you can change your mind if you're on here to speak and you don't want to, or if you said you don't want to and you want to, free to change your mind at any point. Okay, Brian and Linda Turkish are on the record against. Patty and Ben Coe. Okay. Ray Skates, okay, you're on the record as no. Chet Bishop. Okay. William and Joanne Paget. Okay. Keith Kofer, you said you'd like to speak? Okay, come on up.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name's Keith Kofer. I live at 746 Bitterroot Court, Nampa, 83686. I'm the president of the Raintree Homeowners Association, so we've been named a lot here.
Okay.
And representing their board of directors.
Okay.
The plat map shows that an easement is requested for a 30-foot wide street to intersect with through two properties, or one or two properties, and then intersect with the cul-de-sac. Raintree CC&Rs, which I realize you don't enforce, but section 4.1.1 does not allow for this type of construction on residential properties. In part, it states, all building lots shall be used exclusively for single-family residential purposes. No building lot shall be improved except with single-family dwelling unit or structure. And this project does not fall under that. It's restricted. Raintree Homeowners Association is against Greenbrier Estates using our residential streets, adding unnecessary traffic, including construction trucks, construction laborers, vehicles, property owner vehicles, maintenance vehicles to pass through the Raintree community. This will have a total negative impact on our community. So we are totally against it. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm ready to respond to any questions.
Did you say you were with Raintree or Greenbrier?
I'm with Raintree.
Okay.
This is the cul-de-sac that they're trying to encroach.
Okay. Any questions for him? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Paul Duty.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Paul Duty, and my residence is 3609 South Edgeview Drive in Nampa. Upon submission of this proposal to Planning and Zoning, the applicant or applicants have forgotten or have overlooked one very important ruling. I would like to refer you to the Nampa City Council meeting minutes dated April 2nd, 2018. Listed on page 33, item number 5. It requests by City Council that the matter of the lawsuit with Greenbrier Estates number 3 be fully resolved before any action is taken. I would refer you to the last 2 pages. We have been appealed to the Supreme Court of Idaho. We are awaiting that hearing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Rick Arendt? Oh, sorry. Okay, and you didn't want to speak? Okay. Sheila Christensen?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Sheila Christensen. I live at 685 West Pearsall. I have lived in my home for 18 years, and I am the third house down from the end of the cul-de-sac in Raintree subdivision. So I have been, before the commission before, battling Mr. Esposito on the same easement when he wanted to build the Alzheimer property and go through our subdivision. For obvious reasons, we have purchased our home in the cul-de-sac, and I do realize it's a public street. But to put a thoroughfare through our cul-de-sac and our subdivision for land that is plotted in a different subdivision makes no sense to me. And I just, I know that our past history with Mr. Esposito, that we have felt manipulated by some of the things that have been presented to us by him, and the reasons that those things were shot down were obvious in the last hearing, but strongly oppose this moving forward, and I stand for questions.
What did you say your address was?
685 West Pearsall.
Okay, thank you.
Brad Bowes? You're on the record as no? He left. Okay, he's still on the record. Tim Brang? Brandt. Okay. Robert Peters? You're on the record. Alan Calkins said you wanted to speak.
So Alan Calkins, 669 Pearsall Street. Actually, if you go back a couple of slides, my home is the one at the very end of the cul-de-sac. That's, yeah, there you go, the one on the bottom right there. So obviously going to affect me, I think, more than others. Very much opposed to this. We know this has come before in 2018, and I read through all of the notes. I wasn't at that meeting because I didn't own my home at that time. But it looks like a lot of the discussion wasn't necessarily around the access. It was around the building itself and the use of the land and how it was originally had an agreement with the city for RV parking, not for residential lots. But from what I can tell, what's being proposed today is practically identical to what was proposed back then. Only difference being is now it's 7 homes instead of 5, and the access point has changed. I know it was mentioned as well that there would be any future legal disputes. I've had a few conversations with our neighbor that was selling the easement to Mr. Esposito, and this was brought up in that neighborhood meeting that we had a couple of months ago, that there was a condition on that easement being sold. The condition was that the neighborhood would agree to it, that all the neighbors were okay with it. Obviously, a number of neighbors at that meeting and today are all opposed to that. From my understanding and conversations with that homeowner is they would like to back out of that agreement. They would not like to sell that easement to Mr. Esposito. And like I said, it's conditioned upon everybody opposing it. So I'm hoping, as they have told me that they will back out of that agreement, that he does not have access. I'm hoping that still remains the case, that they were truthful with me as far as that goes.
Is that neighbor here?
I don't see them. I wish they were. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I wish they had come. The other thing, just, I mean, my family, similar to Sheila, we moved at the end of a cul-de-sac for a purpose. I have 3 young kids, ages 1, 3, and 5. We love not having any traffic outside of our home. That's the primary reason. We even paid more to purchase this home over others because of that benefit, and we'd very much hate to lose that.
Okay, on to the next page. Okay, Carol Hedstrom. Barbara Smith. Marilyn Gunning. Linda Burley, you want to speak?
Good evening. I'm Linda Burley,
Pull that
3601
microphone just a little bit, thank you.
South Edgeview Drive, Nampa, Idaho, 83686. I'm opposed to any changes to the development agreement regarding John Esposito's Greenbrier number 3. I have many reasons for this, but I'm only going to talk about one tonight. Greenbrier number 3 exists only on paper. It has never been a part of Greenbrier 1 or 2. No vote was ever taken to allow number 3 to be residential homes. The development agreement was for an RV storage facility for Greenbrier residents. Naming this proposed development Greenbrier number 3 would be confusing to emergency personnel as well as buyers. Neither one will be able to enter through Greenbrier through our community. And I'd like to just add that Mr. Butler was not at that neighborhood meeting. And Greenbriers did not speak against him at that meeting. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. George and Sandra Rogers, I have you down as opposed. Gordon and Barb Winter. Okay, come on up.
Barbara Winter, 3617 South Edgeview Drive. Is that all you need?
Yes.
Okay. We moved here 10 years ago this month, and when we purchased that property, we understood that that was RV parking, and we happened to be right next to the Greenbrier Drive to the back property. Our fence is the end of our property and that property. I do not want to see houses built back there. I do not want to see all the vehicles that'll have to come through there. I know they don't come through our street, but they're going to affect us. I don't know how they're even going to turn around without hitting each other. But I'm sure that, you know, this Greenbrier Estates is a beautiful development for 55-plus people. We moved there because we wanted peace and quiet in our senior years. That certainly hasn't happened. And I wanted to say, too, that we did not start the Supreme Court hearing. That was done by John Esposito. He built us a beautiful community. It was a great idea. I'm very grateful that he did that. But it's not our fault that he went broke. And we should not have to be punished. It's been going on 11 years that we've been held up for that. And it's just time to give us our peace and quiet. And I pray that you give us our peace and quiet. Thank you very much.
John and Linda Rodriguez. Okay. John Pence. Okay, I got Philip and somebody Brown. Okay. George Rosenbaum. Okay. All right, that's everybody I have signed up. Is there anybody present now that would like to speak for, against, or undecided? Okay, can we have?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You didn't read off where they live. I assume that all these people live in Braintree and not in Greenbrier?
No.
Greenbrier, they're in Greenbrier and Most of them are Greenbrier residents.
Ask how many are Greenbrier and how many are Rangery?
I don't think it makes a difference. Okay,
Those of you that live in Raintree, would you please raise your hands? And those of you that live in Greenbrier, please raise your hand. Okay, so most of these people live in Greenbrier.
right,
You know, he built the subdivision and they're all opposed to it. Makes some difference to me.
all right. We got a few things.
Yeah, this is very difficult.
With the lawsuit still kind of going on,
Is it still going?
I don't know, are we stuck, Rodney?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we were just talking about that, looking over the language in the minutes. It appears that the subdivision that was proposed back in, do we have a date on that? So action on the subdivision in 2018 could not proceed. So that specific subdivision could not proceed until the legal actions were taken care of. It appears, as we're looking through the minutes, it's related to that access through the Greenbrier Estates subdivision. This is a new subdivision. I do not see that that is legally applicable in this situation.
We can proceed. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair? You just go ahead?
Well, I'd love to hear what you have to say before I rebut. It
No,
helps
I
me.
just had a question about the.
Been doing this a long time.
Is the easement a done deal, or is it in fact, as he said, still up in the air?
It's not like he said. The easement agreement says that John Esposito gets to purchase the property 30 feet wide, subject to city council approval of his development. It does not say, from what I've read, it does not say subject to approval of the neighbors.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a very difficult situation, very emotional for Greenbrier.
Right.
And emotional for John. I've got duct tape in my briefcase for John. You know, John, I think they'd agree, built a nice subdivision. That was a conflict years ago that created a lot of bad blood. That, in my opinion, should not be part of your deliberation. It should be, does this comply with land use planning? If you want it to be part of your deliberation, tell me now, and I will tell you some of the history on the lawsuits. Hearing nothing, I will just talk about land use planning.
Okay.
And thank you. And I want to thank everybody too. I mean, they were very, very kind, because some of the past meetings have been difficult, not only for their emotions, but my client. So talking about land use planning, I'd like to go over some of the issues that were raised. Again, this was already addressed. That legal matter wasn't related to this 1.7 acre property specifically. It was related to Lot 20, which was that small piece of property, and whether or not John had access over it. He doesn't. It's landlocked. It's dead land. It's a dead tax base. Nobody can get to it. John is desperate. Isn't that obvious? He's trying to find access to his property. He's worked, as I told you, in many different locations, and this is where he ended up at. Is it perfect? Probably not. Is it approvable? Yes. Sorry. So that's the first thing, and then the other thing on the how do you police 55 and over, there's some regulations. I don't know them very well. I think 80% of the people have to be 55 and over, and that means it's called housing for older persons. That means I fit in. But you can marry somebody younger, you can have some kids, so there's often younger folks, younger than 55. But again, I'm not an expert on how that's policed. Another comment that was brought up, there was a question on whether it goes through two properties. It doesn't. The one gentleman that talked, I think his name was Alan Culkin. Sorry, I forgot your name wrong. I believe he owns a property next door for which John was negotiating with first, and that didn't work out, so he went next door. And so it's on the next door neighbor's property, not on Mr. Culkin's, just on one property.
Right.
Mrs. Burley, you know, it's not going through Greenbrier. Again, I understand that. They want their peace and quiet. They don't want John to be going through there. He doesn't have a legal right to go on their roads. He's not going to. This is coming in from a different direction. We can name it something other than Greenbrier if the county approves it. It's really not a part of Greenbrier anymore. And again, it never was. It was just on paper. I was at the meeting. Is Mr. Lardy here? Would you verify that I was at the meeting? And you know Dan Lardy, right? He's pretty trustworthy with you guys. You don't know who I am. I was at the meeting. Oh, and also Barbara Winter, I think, talked about being adjacent to the property. The previous plans had the 68-foot wide power easement that's between his homes and Greenbrier, planned for RV parking. Well, that thing died. But this is now going to be backyards for 55 and over. So I think you're going to have some peace back in there. And then if this gets approved, John will be gone. So I don't know what else I can answer. Do you have any other questions?
Those were the things I had written down. Was there anybody else that had any?
And I already addressed previously, so I don't need to rebut the trips per day on the cul-de-sac and so forth. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Do you have any?
Oh, wait. Did you want me to say anything else? Do you want me to say anything else? He can't hear you. Okay. No, oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that, and I'll give you a copy of the letter. He was wondering and sent them a letter on October 29th. The Greenbrier Association said, I will give you the RV parking if you'll let us come through the property. So he's been trying to work with them, but that's not going to work. It's just not, but he felt like he had to try to make the offer, so you knew he was trying to do something to make that work. Thank you.
Any questions for staff before we close public hearing?
I have a question, maybe it's dumb, but I don't understand the development agreement for the RV parking whole situation. Like, what was the reasoning behind that agreement? It seems like it's been denied before because of that agreement. Why should we uphold that agreement or not uphold that agreement?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, your question is the current development agreement for the RV parking.
Yes.
It's the original intent for this Greenbrier was to provide a mixed use, to provide RV parking for those residents. It never really panned out that way.
Aren't there RVs parked there now?
That would be a question for the applicant, I guess, but as far as we're concerned, I guess I wouldn't really know.
So yours like improved RV, like with pavement and all that stuff is what you're saying, or?
No.
I'll be quiet if
No, this has come up
Yeah,
for us
help me understand the
quite
history since I
a
wasn't
bit.
here.
So it's right now, as far as I understand, it's just empty land. Yeah. And we're just changing from the RV agreement to this new development agreement because he's now the owner of it.
It was with the bank.
It was with the bank, yeah.
Okay.
We did the RV park, it was with the bank. That's gone away.
Yeah.
So we made the agreement with the bank so that,
It was made with the Greenbrier Estates developer,
Yeah,
Mr. Esposito.
and it never amounted to anything, so.
Since he bought the property, the bank doesn't have any control over it, so it's no longer going to be
so the development agreement doesn't pass on to the new owner?
Well, the DA goes with the land.
Right,
The
so now-
contract between the city and the developer, the proposal is to change that development agreement
Right.
to allow for the 7 residential lots.
Right.
So just because it goes back to the bank, the DA still is intact because it's a contract between that entity and the.
Can't use it
the
for
city.
RV parking now because it's his property and not.
Got it.
Madam Chair, if you haven't, I don't think you've closed public hearing.
Not yet.
So you could ask the applicant to come back up and give some of that history if that would help.
I think I get it now. I'm just a little slow on all this agreement stuff.
You weren't here.
He wasn't here. We were all here too.
Okay. No, I think I got it now.
You're-
Well,
He hasn't spoken.
I mean, he can if we allow Butler.
Have you already testified?
He didn't.
He didn't
He
testify.
didn't come up and say anything.
Okay, if we let you up here, then we're gonna have, we'll let the applicant come up and talk again too. Okay. Okay,
My name's Tim Brandt. I live at 3680 South Green Basin Way, which was the neighbor who's allowing the access. I'm his next-door neighbor. I don't have any problem with Mr. Esposito developing the land. I have access with getting to it through that cul-de-sac. If he wanted access to that property, he should have worked out that with the Greenbrier when that whole development started. There's no reason to come through the cul-de-sac in order to use his property. There's lots of dead property all over the world. Unfortunately, he owns some now, and he's probably going to have to live with that. I hope he has to live with it. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
you wanna come up and rebut anything, or?
I think my previous rebuttal covered that.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions for staff? No, no, one shot and done, that's. Okay. Want to close public hearing and,
So moved.
Second.
okay. Who moved and who seconded?
Two motions in 1 second.
Matt and Ron. Okay. All those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We've been dealing with this for a very long time. I think if you own land, you should be able to access it. I mean, I really,
It's public street.
it's a public street, he's negotiated with somebody, the city's approved it. I don't see a legal standing where we can say no.
And if he buys that 30-foot strip off of that property owner, it's not a lot anymore, it's a road, so it's not a buildable lot. So that takes it out of that
Right. It's-
buildable lot situation.
Well, it'd have to be surveyed and made into an
Yeah,
actual
but
easement, right?
To
So-
fall under the,
Yep.
you can't,
It's not another.
Can't build on a lot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
It's not a lot
It
anymore.
wouldn't be a lot anymore, so.
Yep.
And the reason that I asked about where these people live, because most of these people that were opposed to it live in an area that's not involved now. The people who lived in Raintree, if they all said no, the only 3 of them were here that said no.
Well, one of them was representing the HOA.
Right.
Yeah. But still,
So
The prop-
presumably, there's more people behind that, but.
well, he didn't give us any names.
But the property owner that owns that land is granting that easement. So, they can do, they have a legal right to
That's what I wanted to make sure.
enter into that
They
with
have
their
that right.
property.
They do, so.
So Rodney, what happens if we move this to council and they fail to get the easement in place, and then he doesn't have access?
It's a undeveloped
dead?
property.
Just dead.
Yeah.
Helicopter pad.
Helicopter, yeah, got it. It's gonna be an expensive subdivision. You gotta buy a helicopter to get to it.
I almost feel like they went after Mr. Esposito for meanness rather than legality.
Well, I mean, the issue before us is the land use application, it's not land attorney.
We can't take in,
I agree.
And the way to get there is to modify the development agreement to
Sounds like a perfect
change the
motion.
use, so. No further discussion. I will go ahead and make the motion to recommend approval of the development agreement modification of ordinance number 3443 and subdivision short plat approval for Greenbrier Estates number 3 to allow for 7 residential lots and 1 common lot in an RP zoning district at 0 Stanford Street for John Esposito with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend approval for the development agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, this will go on to city council. They'll advertise and you guys can go there and be heard there as well. Okay. A minute for the gallery to clear.
Tonight on, finding it or not. I hope it wasn't tonight.
Do we have the applicant for item number 6, the non-commercial kennel license here? As soon as they get out of your way, you can come on up here. You guys gonna keep us on the edge of our seats?
No, this is quick. I'm John White at 29 South Tamarack Way.
Hold on, we can't hear for a second. Okay, go ahead now.
I'm John from 29 South Tamarack Way, Napa 83651.
Okay,
We're applying for a non-commercial kennel license.
okay,
We had a little issue with one of the dogs that was actually given to us through the neighbor. She got through the fence and played with the chickens. So we replaced the fence,
okay,
both of us, and I have hot wire up now, which I
Okay.
had then, but now I have a bigger hot wire.
okay,
Because we have 3 huskies. One of them's a 145-pound Malamute, which he can't fit through the fence. So the little one made it through. We do have 4 dogs.
okay,
I put one down on Father's Day. She was 16. The wife's been one of those, oh, look at them, they're so cute. Well, they're cute when they're little, and they're a lot when they're big, so. But it is, the animal is basically, I mean, everyone, all of our dogs are rescues. They're all fixed. We don't breed them. I don't believe in breeding them because they end up in the pound. So when we started taking on these animals, and we've rehomed some of them, not planning on keeping 10 dogs because that's just crazy. But Humane Society's like, you're on the edge of town. Well, Lone Star School's past us now, and so is everyone else going towards the lake. So basically, we're here for the kennel license because the neighbor turned us in. I haven't had any problems in the last 17, almost 18 years I've been there, except for everyone around us, and we've never called, but yeah, we're called this time, so.
You've had those 4 dogs for how many years?
Well, let's see, so we've had Captain for how long? Porter's the oldest one. So Porter's probably 9. And Aspen, yeah, she was the
This
one
is the first complaint you've had.
And Aspen was actually brought to us by the neighbor that called us in.
So take this off.
So she was, and the deal was, is we need to fix the fence. Okay, well, I'm willing every day to put screws in the fence, but the boards that are rotten are on your side and I can't reach. While your sprinklers are hosing them down and I keep telling you you're flooding my yard but I don't make big deals about it.
They've never been out or.
My dogs don't, she ran a daycare for 13 years. And the only thing the dogs are mad about now is there's no kids. Because we don't do daycare anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the neighbor that turned you in the one that owned the chickens?
Yes.
Yes.
Makes sense.
I offered to buy her a new one.
Now, anything she wanted, and she was like, oh, she laughed it off, and it was no big deal. And then, I don't think she understood that, you have more than 3 dogs too. What? I'll have to look into that. I'm not gonna be petty and turn you in, but at the same time, think about what you're doing. Especially when you brought me the animal that was in your backyard,
Thank you, sir.
All right.
so.
We'll hear from staff and. Okay.
All right, Madam Chair and Commission, as you've heard, this is a request for kennel license for 2 dogs, a CUP for a kennel license at 29 South Tamarack Way. Here's the medium density residential. You can see everything around it is medium density. The zoning is RS6. Everything around it is pretty much RS6 or RS7 in the immediate vicinity. Public utilities are at the site already. You've seen the zoning code recently several times. And so I'm not going to go over this, but it's just conditional use permit for the kennel license. And these are your conclusions of law that must be found if you were to approve this kennel license, CUP. Correspondence, I didn't receive any public correspondence, nothing from neighbors, nothing at all. But the Nampa Animal Control just gave us their history working with the property owner. And as you can see, they cited them after, or they spoke to them, I should say, after the neighbor had complained about the chickens. And they said that that the animal might be a potential nuisance animal charge. That never came about. They never followed through with that. They just said that they needed to go get the CUP and the kennel licenses. To get a kennel license, you have to have each of the dogs licensed by the city. So that would be a requirement that we would recommend. But the last bullet point there from animal control, applicant was cooperative and remorseful that they damaged, or that the chickens were killed. They felt like the differences between the neighbors seemed to be resolved. Really nothing beyond that. I really don't have much to say here except that here are the recommended conditions of approval, same as typical kennel licenses, and then a potential motion for your consideration.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, nobody signed up to testify. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for, against, or undecided?
I think they all left.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's moved to close public hearing by Brett and seconded by Ron.
Fine.
You've done a few.
I thought I yelled out loud enough, but fine.
All those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the conditional use permit for non-commercial kennel license for up to 4 dogs in RS6 at 29 South Tamarack Way for John and Denise White.
Second.
You got it. Okay, it's been moved by Brett and seconded by Steve to approve the CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I gotta read my spiel one more time. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. And get your dogs licensed.
And Madam, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Have the rabies shot. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for waiting.
Thank you for being patient.
We just make this motion now and move on?
Yeah.
First, we got to close public hearing.
All right, number 7.
Madam,
They're just chit-chatting, you know.
Madam Chair.
Pay attention.
Patrick Sullivan is online and has a presentation.
Okay, we're ready.
Madam Chair and Planning and Zoning Commissioners, we have a 3-part presentation, and it's very brief. What you see in front of you after the public hearing is an action item to incorporate by reference a comprehensive plan text amendment for the capital improvements plan and associated fees. These are development impact fees for the city of Nampa and Nampa Fire District as Appendix D for as Appendix D in the comprehensive plan text. So I'm going to start off by introducing Ann Westcott, our consultant with Galena Consulting, who will present the city's CIPs for police, parks, streets, and fire. And then Tom Points, our Public Works Director, will do a brief summary of the water and wastewater impact fees as well. And then we'll stand for any questions. So Ann, I'll let you go. Do you want to share your screen or do you want me to share and go through for you?
It'll probably be easier for you just to go ahead and share if you have it in front of you.
I do. Yes, I'll do that. Let's see here.
Well, Madam Chair and members of the commission, thank you for giving us this time on your agenda. As you may know, impact fee statute in Idaho requires that before impact fees can be adopted or amended, the changes, any amendments or changes to the capital improvement plans for each of those impact fees needs to be amended by appendix into the city's comp plan. And the most easily explainable reason for that is simply so that we don't have departments planning to build things that are inconsistent with the vision, the long-range vision of the community. So what we're here to do tonight is to give you a quick overview of the capital improvement plans in question. I know you do have the full reports, both for the fire district, the 3 departments within the city of Nampa, and then a report from Tom Points on the utility fees as well. But I will just go through, why don't we skip to page 4? I will remind, there we go. I will remind the commission that, just to remind you that the Nampa Rural Fire District now is responsible for all fire in the city. And so we've had to calculate those fees under a separate title. But it all comes together nicely here. This is just a summary of the population and household projections that we have made for the city of Nampa for the next 10 years. Obviously, projecting that the growth continues on in a pretty healthy clip. Go to the next slide. The thing most to remember is that we're looking at about 10,000 new households within the city and almost 5 million non-residential square feet. On page 4, that's 5, yes. On page 5, you'll see the police capital improvement plan. So in order, impact fees are calculated to ensure that the level of service that's provided by these departments does not decline as the community grows. So first we establish what the level of service is. In this case, it's the ratio of officers to 1,000 population. And based on the additional population that's projected for Nampa over the next 10 years, the city will need to hire 26 additional police officers in order to support that growth. Impact fees can be used for the buildings and the vehicles that are required, or those capital expenditures required to support the 26 officers. So the city is currently in planning for additional police facility, substation space, and a police training facility. You'll see on the top line a dollar amount for acquisition for these growth-related facilities. All of that cost is impact fee eligible. Then as they're adding 20,000 new square feet for a facility, only 69% of that facility is growth related. The rest of it is to address some additional space needs that they need. On the police training facility, 20,000 square feet, only 24% of that cost is growth eligible, and that relates to the growth projection rate over the 10-year period. Also, you'll see on all of these impact fee capital improvement plans, a fleet facility expansion. The entire city's fleet facility is being replaced, and this is just the police department's prorated share of that expansion for them to account for the additional vehicles that they'll need for those 26 officers. And you'll see there the purchase of the new officers, 100% growth related, as is their weaponry. Vehicle replacement is on the list, but it has nothing to do with impact fees or growth. And so that moves over to the right-hand column where we just keep track of the things that the property tax fund needs to pay for. So you will see for the police department out of a $17.2 million capital plan, 7.3 million or almost 7.4 million of it is impact fee eligible. Any questions about police before we move to fire? Actually, we'll move to the calculations, I think is on the next page. So you see at the top of the screen, the $7.3 million that's impact fee eligible. It's broken out by the proportion of residential versus non-residential growth. We divide that by who's coming, or the number of units, new households, 10,000 new households, 4.5 million non-residential square feet. If each new household and non-residential square foot were to pay their proportional share of that $7.3 million worth of capital for the police department, they would pay $604 at building permit for a house and 27 cents per non-residential square foot. You will see to the side there that this is almost double what the current fees are. But you also can see that on the far right of the screen where it says current investment, that's a calculation of how much everyone who already lives in the city Nampa has paid in over time to the current inventory of capital assets, the public safety building, current number of vehicles, etc. So the Impact Fee Advisory Committee has recommended that the police CIP be approved and that these fees be amended and be collected for the police department on new development. Any question about the methodology or that specific police CIP? Let's move to parks then. Right, so the same thing for parks. We determine the park's level of service based on the number of acres per 1,000 population. And the current level of service is 3.7 acres per 1,000 population, which would require about another 97 acres over the next 10 years in order to provide the same relationship of space and recreational amenities for growth. And you can see here that the majority of that new acreage is going to come through the development of existing projects, the Ora Brandt and Midway parks, a dog park. All of those will be paid for with impact fees. And then trail development is obviously very related to growth as well, but the city has grant funds that it uses to pay for those projects. And then down below, you'll see parks amenities. There's a long-range plan for a 45-acre multi-use park and soccer complex. The city has not yet fully designed this complex, and so we don't have enough surety about how many different fields will be on it and et cetera. We chose to make sure that the acquisition of the 45 acres was taken care of in this 10-year period. So you can see that that is 100% growth, and the development of the actual soccer complex can occur in future years once that final plan has been produced. Lighting for adult softball, a great way to get more capacity in your fields is just to turn the lights on at night. So instead of building additional softball fields, that expenditure or a proportional share of it is growth related. Then you will see an additional pool being needed because of growth, as well as an expansion of the recreation center to be able to provide capacity for the additional population. Some growth-related vehicles and equipment, and then their proportional share of that fleet facility as well. And you can see that $39 million capital improvement plan, about $23.8 million of that is impact fee eligible. On the next slide, you'll see we only assess park fees to residential development, not non-residential. That's consistent nationwide. So if we were to recover the $23.8 million of growth-related park infrastructure, each house would need to pay $2,340 at building permit. And again, I want to remind you, this is new construction. If it's an existing house, even if it's being remodeled, they would not pay an impact fee. So this is also some increase over the current fee structure, but it's about half of what existing residents have already paid into the system. One thing I should probably stop and clarify is that the largest reason for these impact fees going up in cost at this point is because the cost of construction has gone up so significantly over the last several years. So we have to make sure that we keep costs consistent with the market so that we don't under collect and are not able to build the things on the plan. So where you're seeing increases in these fees, it's not an arbitrary decision to raise the fees, but a reflection of increased costs with the 2022 market. Any questions on parks? Okay, just someone tell me that at least you hear me so I don't get nervous that.
We hear you.
Okay. That'd be a really long soliloquy here if I was just talking to myself. Let's, Patrick, do you want me to just briefly do streets or do you want to have Jeff step in?
I think we'll have Jeff step in and talk about the policy implications, and then and maybe you could just do a recap of the fee sheet, and he could also speak to the projects, and then you could.
Okay, why don't we skip, can you skip to page 12 though? We'll just get Nampa Fire over with, and then it'll make more sense to switch over to the hardcore things. Yes, so this slide just reflects that we have, and I've completely put the wrong, that's the wrong, ignore that slide. The growth for the Nampa Fire Protection District is obviously larger than the growth for the city because it includes their portion of the unincorporated county. But you may recall over the past year or two, as the Nampa Fire Department was annexed into the rural fire district, the point of doing that was to enable the fire district to focus all of its resources on building the stations that would be necessary to keep the level of service constant. Level of service in fire is the number of minutes it takes to respond to an emergency call. As the city of Nampa and the rural fire district has grown so quickly, there have been needs to be adding 2 to 3 to 4 more stations. We've continued to fall behind just simply because of the cost increasing. So this capital improvement plan reflects putting in fire station number 6, which is underway right now, and then adding station 7 and station 8 within the next 10-year period. All of those stations are only needed because of growth. There will also be a remodel at station 4 and station 2 to add some squad vehicle capability. That's kind of the little smaller engine that can respond to some calls that don't need water or extrication tools, for example. And so a portion of that remodeling is growth eligible. Then you will see for every new station, we need to buy additional engines, squad vehicles, etc. And then under equipment, the air packs, cardiac monitors are also impact fee eligible. So for the fire district, $45 million is impact fee eligible, and about half of it, or $22 million, is related to growth and collectible with the impact fees. And on page 14 is the calculation of those fees. To be able to fund $22 million of growth-related capital, each new house would need to pay $1,567.63 per non-residential square foot. Yes, this is as well a significant increase over what's currently being paid, but it is not only reflective of the actual increase in construction, and the fire department is the one building the most buildings, which is why the costs are reflected to have gone up so much. Also, I would point out that all fire departments and districts throughout the valley are recently upgrading or updating their impact fees, and this is very commensurate with other fire fees around the valley. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Hey, Ann, this is Jeff. Is there a way that you could just quickly summarize streets? And then I'll do my presentation on if I have any follow-up questions on the projects and on the policy change.
Absolutely. I expect to be paid extra for this, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, For the streets 10-year capital improvement plan, obviously the city streets department has a very comprehensive transportation master plan. They are, go back one, Patrick, to page 10. They are very much on top of what they need to be building over the next 10 years, and they're working pretty tirelessly to make sure that they're leveraging state and federal and other grant sources to be able to do that. So you'll see on past page, I guess 9, we start with a list of all the roadway and intersection projects that are planned for the city of Nampa for the next 10 years. You have the total cost of the project. The column that says other agency costs is again those state or federal grant amounts. You'll see the percentage of the remaining cost that's impact fee eligible. Then the last 2 columns are the amount we can collect from impact fees and the amount that needs to come from other city sources. This continues on to the next page with a few additional projects, some equipment, the additional, the new fleet and street facility, 17% of that project is growth related. And then the development of a new travel demand model that should create some efficiencies in a lot of the work that comes to P&Z, in fact, so that there's consistency in the reporting that you get there. So $213 million worth of projects over the next 10 years. And 83 million of that amount is the city's responsibility, and about half of that, or 46 million, will come from impact fees, and the other 37 million will come from general funds. And you'll see in the next slide how the street fees roll out there. Unlike fire, police, and parks, we know specifically the number of trips each kind of land use generates, so we can be a little more surgical about the cost that it can be attributed to each land use. So in streets, we can charge by single versus multifamily, and by retail versus office versus industrial. So you'll see here that these impact fees have not significantly changed, actually, and that is most likely because we are not talking about construction costs, the construction of buildings as much, and the city engineering department, the streets department keeps up with actual cost increases on those projects each year. So these fees are not measurably increasing, and they are also very consistent with the Valley. They are slightly less than what ACHD is charging, as you can see in that table, to all the jurisdictions within Ada County.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Madam Chair and Commissioner, this is Jeff Barnes from Public Works. And so I want to also, if you have any questions on transportation, I also want to present a policy change, and this will come up because it will impact developments in the city. So we want to present this alongside of the impact fee update. So I'm going to just quickly share a couple of PowerPoint slides. And just to check, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Over there.
All right, so we keep track of the impact fees. You saw the spreadsheet from Ann. We have 37 projects, and we've started 20 of those. So it's been an incredibly successful program, the impact fees. This is a picture of the projects we have around the city. So we have a policy change that right now impacts what frontage development happens on roadways when a plat comes in. And so in 2018, we updated Title IX, and this current policy says that when developers come in, they will install sidewalk only on arterial and collector roadways. And the city is required to come back and install curb, gutter, and sidewalk pavement, stormwater improvements on the arterial and collector roadways, and using impact fees. On the local roadways, the developers install the full improvements. So prior to this being adopted in 2018, developers were responsible for all improvements on arterial roadways, which are our principal or most busy roadways. our minor arterials, and our collector roadways. But we revisited this recently in the last 6 months. Skyrocketing land and construction amounts increased our overall impact fee project cost. The city has significant funding deficiencies. We did a study and we looked at, okay, if the city's going to come back and actually put in these improvements, what it would cost. And then we looked at the amount that we received in impact fees. And the idea was that the city would pay for these frontage improvement fees, frontage improvements in the future using impact fees, and also have enough to pay for the capital improvements that were on the CIP. That's not the case. We did this study and we found out that we're basically breaking even and deferring this future improvement costs. And looking at 4 comparable plats, we came out with, we did our summary analysis, and we said we have an issue. So we are proposing this to the city council on the 4th. The Impact Fee Advisory Committee looked at it and gave kind of their head nod. It doesn't require impact fees approval or your approval tonight, but it will be going to city council. So we wanted to highlight this to you and also just let people know that that decision will be coming to council. So we would like to go back to the pre-2018 policy, where if a plat comes into the city, the developer is required to install all sidewalk, curbs, gutter, and pavement along arterial roadways, minor arterial roadways, collector roadways, and residential roadways. So all roadways, developers would be required to install all frontage improvements, and then in addition, pay the impact fees associated with those properties. This is a change, and this is a big impact to developers, so we wanted to highlight that. With that, I will stand for any questions on this one if you have those.
No questions?
No, I have a question. When do you start collecting the fees?
So we have said that we're going to go along with the process of the impact fees, but we've given it 3 months following the decision of council. So it'd be July 4th. If the council approves it on April 4th, it would be beginning of July.
Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to just this is Patrick Sullivan. I wanted to interject that I think what we will do is we're going to actually recommend for the impact fee implementation a 6-month period, because there are some significant changes. So those would be 6 months after the April 4th approval, to give people enough time to get those impact fees into their business plans for their projects. So I'll let Tom take it away on our new water and wastewater impact fees.
Yeah, good evening. Planning and Zoning Commission, thank you for your service. This is Tom Points. I'm the Public Works Director in Nampa. And I'm going to be pretty brief because I know it's getting late. But if you have any questions about this program, please let me know as we go through this. So the punchline of this is that we've got an Idaho code that allows all the impact fees for streets and fire and parks that you've all heard about, but we've never used a water and wastewater impact fee, and it's allowable by Idaho code. And there's lots of things that our existing customers are paying for that are growth related. For example, like capacity at the wastewater plant, or like a new water storage facility that we're planning on doing on 11th Avenue or by the interstate. And those all have capacity related costs that we could actually charge an impact fee. And so we're excited that we've worked real hard with our team and a consultant that helped us develop a cost of service study, and we could charge some fees for water, wastewater, and irrigation. See if I can advance my.
you're muted.
Oh, you didn't hear any of what I just said? Okay, well, thank you for letting me know.
We heard the intro.
So, yeah, so, well, I'll just start over again. So we're excited about this new program. This is I'm going to be brief, and I want to thank you for your service. I don't want.
We heard everything until you tried to move to the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Good.
Don't repeat it.
Here we go. Okay, so here we're going to talk about the legal background, and we've already talked about some of the fees that we're going to look at. So rates, the rates that customers pay basically pay for operations and debt and unfunded capital. And we have a hookup fee that is paid by customers that basically buy into existing capacity, but you can't, per a court case that happened up north and also at Hayden and also near the Sun Valley area, you can't include new growth in your hookup fee. So our gap is how to cover the new growth related projects. So this is what this impact fee is proposing to do. You know, we're a nonprofit organization. We charge what's needed to, you know, provide the service, and the rates are really there to cover the existing services that we provide and maintaining that system and maintaining the labor, the equipment, and line replacement. So the growth is where we're missing. So what's happening today is some of our rates and existing customers are paying for new growth on some of the things I mentioned, which are the expansion at the wastewater plant and also the, you know, some of the things that we need to do for new wells or storage capacity for our drinking water system and an irrigation system for new subdivisions. So that's what this really would do, is it would bring in a new revenue source through an impact fee and relieve some pressure off the existing customers. I'm going to skip over some of this technical parts that's in your packet. Basically, one of the, you know, we're looking at adding an impact fee, and this fee we feel is very competitive to the rest of the cities around the Treasure Valley. And, you know, everybody has a hookup fee. Everybody has an impact fee. We're going to add this utility impact fee, which will get us in line with some of the other cities that are growing as rapidly as we are. And the impact fee is for growth, and the hookup fee for this slide is buy into the existing system. So unfortunately, the way that the court case came out is that we're not all on equal grounds on that, because it's buying into the existing system, so divided by the capacity that you're able to serve. So some of us have a very expensive system and not a lot of capacity. So CUNA, for example, has a very high hookup fee, and their fee is based on, they have an expensive system and not a lot of customers. Ours is a little bit lower, but we think that we're still very competitive with our adding in this impact fee on the overall cost of adding hookup fees and impact fees. So determining the actual fee for the impact fee for these utilities is basically what Ann was describing. You come in and you figure out what you need over the next 10 years for growth. And so we have some water projects, we have some sewer projects, so have some irrigation projects. And then you divide it by the capacity that is generated through those projects, and that's basically your fee. So you can see we've got some, these greens are the sewer projects on the outskirts of town that we know where growth is happening. So we'd collect the impact fee for those sewer projects. And and then go construct those ahead of the development. And then we have new wells. And then we also have our Group F project at the wastewater plant. That's going to generate capacity for the next 20 years for us to be able to grow into. And so we have a fee for that additional capacity that we're building. And that's the impact fee. This is in your packet. I'm going to skip over that. This is the, so impact fees, they're allowable by Idaho code. And so we're just using this code to be able to collect these fees. Impact fees are different than hookup fees. Hookup fees are buying into the existing system. Impact fee is for new growth. And Ann was talking about the total amount of fees for various things. So we looked at, this is basically our CIP, which we wanted to focus our discussion on that today with the planning and zoning. We got lots of projects for new gravity sewer mains, new capacity at the plant. We're not looking at, we know that all this plant construction of $151 million is not growth related. Some of it is for a reuse project, recycling water, and also for regulatory compliance. So we came up with only 18% of that as being eligible. But looking at our master plans and what we have planned, we came up with $50 million of wastewater expense that's eligible for impact fees. On the domestic water system, it's a little less because we have quite a bit of capacity that we've already built ahead of development, and we're putting in our wells. And we do have some costs for our storage tank that I was mentioning over by 11th Avenue and Interstate. And then we got some new wells that we need to put in. So we came up with $12 million worth of costs and impact fees on the domestic water. Then on irrigation, we're basically putting in one regional irrigation pump station per year that's growth related. And that, so we added one of those over a 10-year period and came up with $9 million worth of projects. We don't have much existing capacity in the irrigation system that we've already built. This is everything new that comes on is basically growth related on the irrigation system. And so this is just a quick summary of the fees increases. So we will still have a hookup fee because you're buying into the existing capacity and system that's there today, which includes what we've already built into the wastewater plant. And then there'll be an impact fee on top of that. So you can see the percent increases. The irrigation increase is the largest because, like I said, we don't have any capacity to provide for growth. That's all. Everything that new comes on is totally growth related. And then at the wastewater plant, it's all our fees are based on the flow and the constituents. So we've talked with all the existing industrial customers in the city and kind of informed us of this fee and got some feedback from them. And they feel like this is, we're being reasonable, growth pays for growth. We're not gonna charge fees for existing customers because most of the time when they come in, they're just asking for a little bit of increase on the capacity so they can get in compliance with our permits that we have with our regulatory agencies. So this would only apply to new developments that come to town. And like I said, we've vetted this through the industrial customers. We've also talked about the fees for the residential customers through the Snake Rivers Builders Association, and had a meeting with them and talked to them about that. Collected a couple comments from them and adjusted our program. And they understood that growth would pay for growth and are supportive of these fees. And the last thing, I mentioned the reuse program. I'm not sure if everybody knows, this is a really exciting thing to have for Nampa, is our Class A recycled water. So we're doing a major upgrade onto our wastewater plant, and we're building a Class A recycled water system that can provide irrigation water to the Phyllis Canal over by Fred Meyer. And that'll help us save water behind the dams by recycling water instead of pulling out of the reservoir. It also helps with the water quality because we're removing a discharge point from the waters of the U.S. But another thing it's doing that's related to this discussion is we're providing a recycled water that we want to for our North Nampa industrial area, which is Northside, Cherry, Ustick, and Midland, that square area up there. We want to provide up to 2 million gallons a day that can be used for industrial use. And so this water will be at a much lower cost than the impact fee and hookup fees that we just went over in that previous slide. So we're excited about this. I think this could be a good thing for our industrial customers. It can be used for cooling water and non-agricultural uses. So in summary, we're looking to put this impact fee for utilities. It's really to help with the growth-related portions of the utilities that we're not able to collect today that are being funded by rates. And it will be in conjunction with the hookup fees that are in place today, which is to buy into the existing capacity. So with that, I'll stand for any questions about utility impact fees.
Tom, this is Tom. Was that 4.25% just on the impact fee for the new construction for the wastewater? That's over 20 grand on a $500,000 house.
So let's go back to the.
And the
slides here.
SRBBCA was just supportive of that?
Call him tomorrow and ask him.
Let me go back to the slides here.
4.25%.
4% of the total that is being charged. Just a second.
He had a $400,000 home, 4.25, and that. Did I read that wrong? Okay, I'm like, I can't understand the SRBBCA back in a $20,000 increase.
No, it's not a 20,000 increase. So can you see the slide now, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the total amount that's paid that in between the impact fee and the hookup fee. Because we want to put this in perspective because it's, that whenever you come in and buy a house, you have to pay both of these. And so the total fee is a little over $16,000. So our portion that we're talking about is whatever that is. It's got to get my glasses on. About $4,000 increase. $3,500 increase on the impact fee for utilities.
Or $2,500 over what we're paying now. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions I could answer about this program?
No?
Well, Chairman or Madam Chair and Commissioners, are there any other questions you have? The action item is to adopt a comprehensive plan text amendment, incorporates by reference the capital improvements plans and the associated impact fees for police, parks, streets, fire, sewer, domestic water and pressurized irrigation for the city of Nampa and Nampa Fire Protection District. After this is adopted into the comprehensive plan, we're going to take this to the city council to adopt an ordinance to adopt the same CIPs and adopt the fee schedules that we would then start charging 6 months after they're approved by council. If there's any changes that come out of that, substantive changes, we would then bring them back to your group to reapprove if, let's say, they adjust any of the fees or adjust any of the CIPs. But I really doubt that will happen. We worked for about 9 months with our Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. We had several meetings, both internally with city staff, between our impact fee meetings, and we had great feedback and unanimous support for these CIPs, except we had one person abstain from the fire CIP vote out of the entire group. But all in all, it was a great experience, and I will hand it back to Doug Critchfield to finish it out.
Thank you. All right, Doug.
He's asleep.
Wake him up.
I'll take you home here. So this is the motion before you. And
Madam
oh,
Chair.
it's not up on the screen.
I move to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan text amendment incorporated by reference to the capital improvement plan for associated fees, including impact fees for the city of Nampa and Nampa Fire Protection District as Appendix D for the Nampa Building Official, Patrick Sullivan.
Did we do
I got a
public hearing, though?
Yeah, we got a public hearing we got to open.
Oh.
That. But I got a question, I guess, for Patrick. I'm going to sound really dumb because I'm a member of the Impact Fee Committee. Those growth numbers that were part of that report, and were those Compass provided numbers?
Yes, those were Compass provided numbers.
So
Yes.
if anything, like if we said, well, in 2031, we feel like there's going to be more than, I'm just looking at industrial because that's kind of my background. 2 million feet of industrial added in 10 years or by 2031. The market's really kind of changed in Nampa, and I think there's probably 3 or 4 million feet planned to be delivered to our market in 24 months. So how does that change the math on industrial, not advocating for a huge increase to industrial? I had 2 questions, so we'll start there and I'll go to the next one.
Patrick, do you want me to handle that?
I think I can field it. We every 4 years by statute, we have to look at the impact fees and make a decision to adjust or leave the same or reduce them. In times of growth, we actually meet annually and share with the Impact Fee Advisory Committee both the results, the income or the revenue that we've collected, and then also a recap of what we'd spent our money on. We also annually, since we're looking at annually, we will look at the growth numbers annually as well. And if there's a need to make adjustments, then we would propose to make those adjustments.
Okay. And then second question on the changes to Title IX are, how aware is the development community of those changes and what the implications are? Because that's more than a big change to the current policy.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Acker, we've had discussions with most of the residential developers as well as the industrial developers that we're engaged in with now. So they are aware that it's coming. We have not identified the implementation date for that, obviously, because it hasn't gone to council. We would likely do a 3 or 6 month, depending, on how that goes with council on that implementation. But we have been talking with the development community about this for a number of months to let them know that that is something that is being discussed and will be proposed to council.
Okay. So is that a heads up to us, or is that part of the motion that we're making tonight, the Title IX changes?
That is a heads up to the commission. That is strictly a council decision,
Okay.
not something that would be recommended by this body.
Okay.
Did anybody ask about right-of-way acquisition versus just? Because,
So-
in other counties, they buy right-of-way from you and then.
Right. Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Acker, we're in a slightly different situation than Ada County is. We, with our legislative decisions such as annexations and rezones, the city has the authority to place conditions on those. And so right-of-way acquisition is one of those conditions that has historically been put on those. And so that is the stance that the city has taken. I know in the other jurisdiction where they have a countywide highway district and the highway district is who is acquiring the right-of-way, not the municipalities, they don't end up with the same legislative authority on those actions. Now, the municipalities in Ada County, if they chose to, they could, when they do the annexations, they could require those right-of-way dedications if they so chose, but that's not how that relationship has gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
We can open public hearing. Is there anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? If you get up, Daniel, I'm going to throw something at you.
Where'd the engineer go?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye. All
Any
right, Steve.
opposed? Okay,
I already closed my book. I'm done for the night. Okay, here we go. I move to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan text amendment incorporated by reference to capital improvement plans and associated fees, including impact fees, for the city of Nampa and Nampa Fire Protection District as Appendix D for the Nampa Building official Patrick Sullivan.
I'll second because I was on the impact fee committee. Asked all the questions.
okay, it's been moved by Steve and seconded by Ron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Should have made the font really small.
All
Thank you.
right, thank
you.
you. And now